Welcome to Audio Sleep Stories for Adults. In the stillness between the rush of daily life, where deep ideas take the gentle form of stories, you are invited to listen, to let your mind wander softly into a peaceful sleep. Tonight, we journey into the world of bionic body augmentation, a realm where human biology and technology entwine, crafting new possibilities beyond the skin we know. Imagine the subtle hum of a neural implant syncing with your thoughts, translating intention into motion. Beneath the surface of flesh and bone, miniature machines, powered by breakthroughs in nanotechnology, repair damaged tissues, enhance natural senses, or even expand them beyond human limits. Scientists at leading institutions have discovered ways to integrate synthetic muscles that flex with the same grace and strength as organic ones, their fibers woven from materials lighter than silk but stronger than steel. These bionic enhancements respond to electrical signals from the nervous system, enabling seamless, instinctive movement. In specialized labs, researchers have placed retinal implants capable of restoring sight to the blind by converting light directly into neural impulses. Imagine seeing the world anew through a cybernetic lens, colors once lost returning as vibrant as dawn. Even the heart, that tireless engine, can now be supported or replaced by compact, artificial pumps designed to mimic natural rhythms, monitored in real time by embedded sensors sending data to your physician or even your personal device. But what lies beyond healing and restoration? Some pioneers envision augmentations that grant abilities once confined to the realm of science fiction: enhanced memory storage, direct brain-to-brain communication, or skin that adjusts its temperature, texture, and even color on demand. This fusion of flesh and machine challenges our understanding of identity and limits. It raises silent questions as you breathe, as you listen. How much of you remains when your body carries more than just its original parts? So now, settle into your space. Close your eyes or simply relax your body. Let each word carry you deeper, traveling into the land where science meets wonder, where the future is not distant but unfolding quietly beneath our skin. In moments, you may drift into a gentle sleep like a soft summer breeze, or awaken with a new question glowing softly at the edge of your thoughts, and a heart ignited by inspiration. Shall we begin? Have you ever watched a hummingbird hover motionless in the air, each wing beating at nearly 80 times per second, defying gravity with such grace and precision that it seems less a creature of flesh and bone and more a marvel of engineered mechanics? Now imagine for a moment that human bodies might one day surpass even that elegance, not just in flight, but in strength, agility, and resilience, through the seamless fusion of biology and technology. This is the quiet revolution lurking on the horizon, the realm of bionic body augmentation. We can start with the story of Hugh Hare, a man whose life blurs the line between human and machine. In 1982, at the age of 17, Hare lost both legs below the knees to frostbite during a hiking accident in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. But rather than succumb to despair, he embarked on a path that would not only redefine his own existence, but also reshape our understanding of the human form. Hare became a pioneering biomechanical engineer at MIT, designing prosthetic limbs that do not just replace, but enhance human capabilities. His bionic legs allow him to run, climb, and dance with a fluidity that rivals, sometimes surpasses, that of natural limbs. Hare's story is not just one of recovery, but of transcendence and adaptation, a testament to the transformative power of merging biology with technology. At its core, bionic body augmentation is about overcoming the limitations of our physical selves by integrating machines designed to restore or amplify human functions. It is where the silicon meets the sinew, where algorithms feed feedback loops within our nervous systems, and where metallic joints mimic, and sometimes improve upon, the mechanics forged by millions of years of evolution. This domain is the crossroads of biology, robotics, neuroscience, materials science, and artificial intelligence, a multidisciplinary symphony that orchestrates new forms of embodiment. Consider the biological foundation beneath this fusion. Our bodies operate through networks of neurons transmitting electrical signals, muscles contracting under chemical influence, and bones providing structural frameworks. Introducing bionics means interfacing with these systems at multiple levels, often replacing or augmenting parts of the body that have been lost, damaged, or deemed insufficient. But it goes beyond mere replacement. The pioneering work by researchers such as Hugh Hare and others reveals a future where prosthetics can be controlled by the brain's motor cortex through direct neural interfaces, providing feedback that makes the limb feel, to the user, like an extension of their own body rather than a foreign object. This intimate connection between human nervous system and machine interface is echoed in scientific research. According to a 2012 study published in Nature, a team at the University of Pittsburgh successfully demonstrated that amputees could control robotic limbs using implanted electrodes that recorded neural signals. The prostheses responded with such precision that users reported sensations as though the limbs were truly theirs. This research marked a watershed moment in the quest for truly integrated bionic augmentation, opening the door to devices that do not just act mechanically but communicate biologically. Philosophically, the notion of bionic augmentation wrestles with questions as old as humanity itself. What does it mean to be human? At what point does enhancement cease to be repair and become transformation? The ancient myth of the Icarus, who fashioned wings of wax and feathers to escape his mortal bounds, only to fall when his creation failed him, serves as a cautionary tale. Today, the wings we build for ourselves are not made of fragile wax but of carbon fiber, microprocessors, and neural algorithms. Yet the fear and excitement remain. Does augmenting the body with machines risk fracturing our identity, or does it amplify the very essence of what it means to be human, a creature of ingenuity, resilience, and infinite curiosity? Historically, humans have always sought tools to extend their capacities. From the earliest stone axes to the invention of the wheel, technology has been a natural extension of our bodies and minds. However, the leap into bionic augmentation marks a radical shift. No longer external tools wielded by human hands, these are devices integrated into our very flesh, blurring the line between organism and apparatus. The science fiction narratives of cybernetic organisms and transhumanism have long teased this boundary, But today's research validates that these are not mere fantasies but emerging realities. Take, for example, the advances in sensory augmentation. In 2014, researchers at the University of Michigan developed a prosthetic hand capable of delivering tactile feedback to users. This allowed amputees not only to grasp objects, but to feel their texture, temperature, and pressure. Such technology mimics the skin's sensory neurons and sends signals that the brain interprets as touch. This is not merely a mechanical grasp, but an emotional and intellectual reconnection to the world, a restoration of lived experience. The physics underlying bionic limbs and enhancements are no less fascinating. Engineers must design devices that replicate the complex biomechanical properties of human muscles and joints. Traditional motors and servos have given way to bio-inspired actuators made from smart materials that contract and expand like muscle fibers. For instance, electroactive polymers, materials that change shape in response to electrical stimuli, have been employed to simulate muscle movements in soft robotics. These materials allow for lighter, more flexible, and more lifelike limbs that move not just with power but with nuance. From a neuroscientific standpoint, the challenge is decoding the brain's intricate language to allow seamless control over these devices. The motor cortex sends signals that travel through peripheral nerves to muscles, orchestrating a symphony of movement. Bionic augmentation aims to intercept and interpret these signals, sometimes even employing machine learning algorithms to improve responsiveness and adaptability. This leads to a feedback loop, where the device learns from the user and vice versa, transforming the prosthetic from a static machine to an evolving partner in motion. Comparing bionic body augmentation to other forms of human enhancement reveals its unique position. Unlike pharmaceuticals or genetic modification, which alter internal biochemical processes, bionic augmentation is an external, tangible interface, a fusion of flesh and metal that is visible and palpable. It navigates the liminal space between biology and technology, offering a new mode of existence that is neither fully organic nor purely mechanical. To understand its broader context, one can juxtapose bionic augmentation with brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, which focus more on cognitive enhancement rather than physical. Yet, the boundaries are porous. Modern BCIs are increasingly integrated with physical augmentations, allowing paralyzed individuals not only to control robotic limbs, but also to interact with their environment through digital extensions, turning thought into action with unprecedented immediacy. The ethical and emotional landscape of bionic augmentation is as complex as its technological foundation. Stories abound of individuals who have embraced their bionic selves and have found empowerment, freedom, and new identities, while others grapple with alienation, societal perceptions, or fears of losing their natural humanity. In 2016, the Cybathlon, a competition where athletes with disabilities compete using advanced prosthetic technologies, showcased not just the capabilities of machines, but the indomitable spirit of human adaptation. It was a celebration of the union between human will and engineered enhancement, a vivid tableau of possibility. But what awaits us beyond these milestones? The future whispered by ongoing research is a tantalizing blend of the known and the speculative. Scientists are exploring neural lace technologies, ultra-lightweight exoskeletons, and even genetic nanotechnological hybrids that would allow devices to grow with or even inside the body. Such prospects demand we reflect deeply on the nature of personhood, autonomy, and the evolving relationship between body and self. Amidst all these developments, one cannot help but wonder, as we craft these bionic extensions, do we emerge not just stronger or faster, but fundamentally different? In pursuing the perfect synthesis of human and machine, are we challenging the very boundaries of what it means to exist? As Hugh Hare once said, the body is the ultimate technology. If that is true, then bionic augmentation is not a departure from nature, but its next grand evolution. A new chapter in the cosmic story of life reaching ever outward and inward, transforming itself through imagination, resilience, and the unyielding quest to transcend limits. So as you ponder this fusion of biology and machine, ask yourself, when the boundaries between flesh and steel dissolve, what new forms of life, consciousness, and identity might arise? And how will that shape the endless adventure we call being human? To delve deeper into the essence of bionic body augmentation, it is essential to examine the linguistic and conceptual frameworks that shape our understanding of this field. The term bionic itself derives from a combination of biology and electronics, first popularized in the 1960s by the television series The $6 Million Man Asterisk, where the protagonist, Steve Austin, was equipped with enhanced mechanical limbs that granted him superhuman abilities. While initially a piece of fiction, the term has since evolved into a precise descriptor within biomedical engineering and robotics, denoting systems that integrate biological and electronic components in a synergistic manner. In scientific discourse, bionic augmentation is often framed within the context of cybernetics a field pioneered by Norbert Wiener in the mid-20th century, which studies regulatory and feedback mechanisms in both machines and living organisms. Cybernetics laid the theoretical groundwork for understanding how artificial systems could emulate or interact with biological functions, anticipating the modern development of implants and prosthetics that communicate bidirectionally with the nervous system. Moreover, the definition of augmentation transcends mere restoration of lost function. It implies enhancement, improvements beyond natural human limits. This raises the distinction between prosthetics, replacement of lost body parts, and orthotics, external devices that support or enhance existing limbs, and exoskeletons, wearable structures that provide additional strength or endurance. The field of bionics encompasses all these categories, unified by the goal to expand human capacity in ways previously unimaginable. On the cellular and molecular level, the challenge of bionic integration demands biocompatibility, the ability of artificial materials to coexist with living tissues without eliciting rejection or harmful immune responses. Advances in biomaterials science have been pivotal. Researchers have developed coatings and interfaces using substances such as hydrogel, diamond-like carbon, and even graphene, which provide electrical conductivity while supporting cell growth and minimizing inflammation. A notable example is the development of neural electrodes coated with conductive polymers that mimic the flexibility of brain tissue, reducing scarring and improving signal fidelity over time, as described in a 2020 review in Advanced Materials. Integrating these technologies requires sophisticated computational frameworks. Machine learning and artificial intelligence, AI, play crucial roles in enhancing bionic function. Algorithms can adapt in real time to changing biological signals, learning the unique nuances of each user's neural activity and movement preferences. For example, reinforcement learning models have been employed to optimize prosthetic gait patterns, minimizing energy expenditure and improving stability. AI-driven signal processing also mitigates noise and artifacts in neural recordings, a persistent challenge due to the complex electrophysiological environment. The conceptual framework also involves the notion of plasticity asterisk, the brain's remarkable capacity to adapt structurally and functionally in response to new experiences or injuries. Neuroplasticity underlies the user's ability to incorporate bionic devices into their body schema, a process that can be enhanced through targeted rehabilitation and sensory feedback. Studies involving functional MRI and transcranial magnetic stimulation have illustrated that prosthetic use can lead to cortical reorganization, effectively rewiring the brain to accommodate new modes of interaction. Ethically, the implications of bionic augmentation provoke ongoing debate. Scholars such as philosopher Nick Bostrom have engaged with concepts of asterisk transhumanism, envisioning a future where humans transcend biological constraints through technology. However, concerns arise over issues of accessibility, equity, and identity. Will bionic enhancements be available only to the wealthy, exacerbating social divides? How might enhanced individuals relate to those with unaugmented bodies? And crucially, how do we preserve autonomy and consent when devices become increasingly integrated with cognitive processes? Legal frameworks are struggling to keep pace. Questions of liability, for instance, in the event of malfunction-induced injury, are complex when a device operates semi-autonomously. Privacy is another dimension, as neural data could reveal highly sensitive psychological or behavioral information. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and emerging neuroprivacy principles seek to address these challenges. But the rapid advancement of bionic technologies demands vigilant and adaptive policies. In summary, bionic body augmentation is a multifaceted field at the convergence of biology, engineering, neuroscience, and ethics. It encapsulates not only the physical replacement or enhancement of body parts, but also the cognitive and emotional integration of artificial systems into the human experience. As ongoing research pushes the boundaries of what is possible, it invites profound reflection on the nature of embodiment, identity, and the future trajectory of human evolution. In the twilight of the 19th century, beneath the hazy glow of gas lamps lining the bustling streets of London, a question stirred in the minds of visionaries and laymen alike. What if the human body, with all its frailties and limitations, could be enhanced beyond its natural boundaries? This question was not born out of idle fancy, but out of necessity, an urgent yearning to overcome injury, illness, and the stark vulnerabilities that had long defined human existence. It was in this charged atmosphere of scientific curiosity and philosophical daring that the seeds of what we now call bionic body augmentation began to take root. Imagine the dimly lit laboratory of the German surgeon and inventor Wilhelm Röntgen, fresh from his 1895 discovery of X-rays, peering through the veil of flesh at the invisible architecture beneath. The marvel of seeing inside the body without opening it sparked more than medical innovation. It ignited a profound reimagining of the body itself. If the unseen inner workings could be revealed, what if they could also be repaired, replaced, or even enhanced? This was the embryonic moment, not yet termed bionic, not yet bound by the language of cybernetics, when humanity first glimpsed the possibility of transcending the natural limitations of the flesh. The journey of bionic augmentation is intertwined with the intellectual currents of the early 20th century, when scientific advancement accelerated in leaps and bounds, yet remained enmeshed in philosophical debate. The term bionics was coined much later, in 1958, by Jack E. Steele, an American aerospace engineer inspired by the harmony of biology and technology. But the ideas that led to this nomenclature had been gestating decades prior, nurtured by the minds of polymaths and dreamers alike. One cannot speak of this history without evoking the figure of Leonardo da Vinci, who, centuries earlier, sketched mechanical limbs and pondered the mechanics of human movement. His notebooks, a collage of anatomy and engineering, resonate with the same longing that would drive future generations toward body augmentation. Da Vinci envisioned the body as a machine, a marvel of joints, pulleys, and levers, a concept that would eventually underpin the scientific rationale for prosthetics and enhancements. Leap forward to the post-World War I era, where the maelstrom of global conflict left millions physically shattered and in dire need of restoration. The devastation wrought by new, mechanized weapons created an unprecedented demand for prosthetic limbs, catalyzing the technological and medical efforts to replace lost functionality. Yet, the prosthetics of this era were rudimentary, often nothing more than wooden appendages with limited utility. The psychological implications were profound. How could a person reclaim identity and agency when stripped of a part of their body? Enter the American physiologist and inventor Vladimir Demikhov in the mid-20th century, whose controversial experiments on organ transplantation and limb grafting stirred both scientific intrigue and ethical turmoil. Demikhov's work foreshadowed the melding of biology and mechanics, edging closer to the dream of not just replacement, but augmentation, a notion that challenged existing boundaries between man and machine. Simultaneously, across the Pacific, Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori was cultivating a distinctly different perspective. Mori's articulation of the uncanny valley hypothesis in 1970 introduced a psychological dimension to the conversation, warning that as artificial limbs and augmentations approach near-human likeness, they provoke unease rather than acceptance. This insight would shape the aesthetic and functional design of bionic devices, reflecting a cultural dialogue about what it means to be human, to be whole. The history of bionic body augmentation is also a story of cinematic and literary imagination, where science fiction forged a parallel narrative that both inspired and criticized the scientific enterprise. In 1928, the German expressionist film Metropolis presented a haunting vision of a mechanized female robot, a figure both enchanting and terrifying, symbolizing society's ambivalence toward the fusion of flesh and machine. The image of Maria, the robotic doppelganger, persisted as a cultural touchstone for the promises and perils of technological enhancement. In literature, the 1960s witnessed the emergence of cyberpunk, a genre that grappled with the implications of body modification and cybernetic implants. Writers such as Philip K. Dick and William Gibson painted worlds where the human body was a canvas for technological intervention, for both survival and empowerment. Their stories were not mere fantasies, but speculative ethnographies probing the ethical dilemmas and identity crises that bionic augmentation could unleash. At the heart of this historical tapestry stands the figure of Kevin Warwick, a British engineer whose daring self-experiments in the late 1990s and early 2000s transformed bionics from a theoretical ideal to tangible reality. Warwick, often called Captain Cyborg, implanted a silicon chip into his arm that interfaced directly with his nervous system, allowing him to control robotic limbs and experience sensory feedback. His work sparked fierce debates across academic circles, religious institutions, and the public sphere. Was humanity on the cusp of transcending its biological essence, or treading too close to an unnatural abyss? The Western scientific tradition, with its roots in Cartesian dualism and reductionist empiricism, often framed bionics as a technical challenge to build devices that replicate or enhance biological function. Meanwhile, Eastern philosophies contributed a more holistic approach, emphasizing harmony between the body, mind, and environment. In Japan, for example, the integration of robotic augmentations is often envisioned not as a disruptive invasion of the self, but as an extension of natural human evolution, an idea reflected in the design ethos of companies like Cyberdyne with their HAL, hybrid assistive limb exoskeleton. The trajectory of bionic body augmentation has not been linear nor uncontroversial. The Cold War era witnessed ideological clashes that influenced research priorities. In the West, military funding propelled the development of advanced prosthetics and neural interfaces, motivated by the desire to restore or enhance soldiers' capabilities. In contrast, Soviet research often blended bioengineering with cybernetics through the lens of Marxist materialism, emphasizing the collective over the individual. Both paradigms wrestled with the ethical implications of creating superhuman abilities, reflecting broader societal anxieties about power and control. The academic literature from the mid-20th century to today is a treasure trove of debates, experiments, and reflections. For example, the 1960 paper by Gray Walter, a British neurophysiologist, demonstrated the potential for machines to mimic neural patterns, hinting at the possibility of integrating artificial systems with the nervous system. Walter's work, while not explicitly about bionic limbs, laid foundational principles for neural prosthetics. In letters exchanged between the American engineer and inventor Robert J. White and his contemporaries, we find a window into the ethical quandaries that accompanied experimental head transplants in primates during the 1970s, work that provoked visceral reactions and underscored the tension between scientific ambition and moral boundaries. White's experiments, though ultimately halted, fueled a broader discourse about the limits of human intervention in biological identity. Yet, despite moments of skepticism and periods when the field seemed relegated to the fringes of science, bionic body augmentation has continually resurfaced with renewed vigor, propelled by technological breakthroughs in microelectronics, materials science, and neuroscience. The invention of myoelectric prostheses in the 1960s, which use electrical signals from muscles to control artificial limbs, marked a pivotal turning point, transforming mechanical appendages into responsive extensions of the self. Today, the legacy of this intricate history is etched in the laboratories where researchers decode the language of neurons, and in the workshops where engineers craft limbs with sensory feedback, as delicate as a feather's touch. It is present in the testimonies of amputees who reclaim their autonomy, and in the cautious optimism of ethicists wrestling with the future. One physical artifact embodies this continuum: the original myoelectric prosthesis, developed by the German company Otto Bach in the 1960s, preserved in the Deutsches Museum in Munich. This device, once an icon of cutting-edge technology, now stands as a relic, a testament to human ingenuity, and a symbol of the enduring quest to transcend our biological limits. And so, as we stand at the crossroads of biology and technology, we must ask, what are the philosophical implications of remaking the human form? How do we navigate the blurred boundaries between enhancement and identity, between healing and evolution? The story of bionic body augmentation is far from over. It invites us to explore these questions in the next chapter, where hypotheses and controversies collide, shaping the future of what it means to be human. Building upon this rich historical and conceptual foundation, the post-millennial era has witnessed an unprecedented acceleration in the convergence of biology, electronics, and informatics that continuously reshapes the landscape of bionic body augmentation. This dynamic interplay is fueled by advances in several key scientific domains, each contributing critical pieces to the mosaic of contemporary enhancement technologies. Foremost among these is the field of neural engineering, which seeks to decode and interface with the nervous system at ever finer scales. Landmark research by neuroscientists such as Miguel Nicolis at Duke University has yielded remarkable demonstrations of direct brain-machine interfaces, BMIs that allow primates, and later humans, to control robotic limbs using only neural activity. Nicolis et al., Nature *, 2012. Nicolis's pioneering work culminated in the Walk Again project, wherein a paralyzed individual was able to command a powered exoskeleton through neural signals, restoring a semblance of locomotion once deemed impossible. This research not only exemplifies the practical realization of early 20th century aspirations, but also embodies the shift from prosthetic replacement to integrative augmentation, where machine and biology merge into hybrid operational systems. Parallel developments in materials science have revolutionized the physical construction of bionic devices. The emergence of flexible, biocompatible materials, such as graphene-based sensors and conductive polymers, has enabled the fabrication of prostheses that closely mimic the tactile responsiveness of biological skin. Rogers et al. Science *, 2010. These electronic skins are capable of registering pressure, temperature, and even chemical signals, offering users nuanced sensory feedback that enhances both dexterity and the psychological sense of bodily ownership. This progress addresses a critical limitation of earlier prosthetics, which, despite functional improvements, often failed to integrate seamlessly into the user's somatosensory experience. Moreover, the revolutionary advent of optogenetics and genetic engineering has begun to explore pathways for modulating neural circuits with light-sensitive proteins, opening possibilities for restoring or enhancing sensory modalities and motor control. Diasaroth. Nature Methods * 2011. Though still largely experimental in the context of bionics, these biological interventions hint at future hybrid strategies that combine electronic and genetic tools to transcend conventional mechanical interfaces. The socio-cultural dimension of bionic augmentation has equally evolved, influenced profoundly by shifting attitudes toward disability, identity, and the nature of human enhancement. The disability rights movement of the late 20th century reframed prosthetics not merely as medical devices, but as instruments of empowerment and social inclusion. Shakespeare, Disability Rights and Wrongs * 2006. This paradigm shift emphasized user-centered design and participatory development, promoting prosthetics that are customizable not only for function, but also for personal expression. Contemporary users often choose brightly colored or stylized limbs, signaling a reclaiming of augmentation as a form of identity rather than a symbol of lack. Concurrently, ethical scholarship has grown more nuanced in addressing the challenges posed by emerging bionic technologies. The seminal work of philosophers like Nick Bostrom and Julian Savulescu has interrogated the moral imperatives and potential risks associated with cognitive and physical enhancement. Bostrom, Philosophy and Technology * 2008. Questions surrounding equitable access, informed consent, and the potential exacerbation of social inequalities remain at the forefront of policy debates. Furthermore, concerns about data privacy and cybersecurity arise as neural interfaces increasingly connect users to digital networks, exposing vulnerabilities that could compromise bodily autonomy. Institutional frameworks have begun to respond to these complexities. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the European Medicines Agency, EMA, have established regulatory pathways tailored to advanced prosthetics and neuroprosthetic devices, balancing innovation with safety. International collaborations, such as the International Neuromodulation Society, facilitate interdisciplinary dialogue that spans engineering, medicine, ethics, and law, underscoring the transnational significance of this technological frontier. In parallel, cultural representations continue to shape public perceptions and aspirations. Media portrayals, from films like Ghost in the Shell, 1995, and Black Panther, 2018, to video games such as Deus Ex Asterisk, explore scenarios where bionic augmentation challenges traditional conceptions of humanity. These narratives often engage with themes of empowerment, alienation, and hybridity, mirroring real-world tensions that arise as technology transforms embodiment. On the research frontier, projects funded by agencies such as DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, illustrate the dual-use nature of bionic technologies. Initiatives like the Revolutionizing Prosthetics program have produced highly articulated, sensor-rich limbs capable of near-natural movement and grip force modulation. Parker et al. IEEE Transactions on Neural Systems and Rehabilitation Engineering Asterisk, 2014. While originally aimed at assisting wounded veterans, these technologies hold the potential to spill over into civilian applications, raising questions about normalization of enhancement beyond therapeutic goals. Furthermore, the integration of artificial intelligence, AI, into prosthetic control systems signifies a transformative leap. Machine learning algorithms can now interpret complex electromyographic (EMG) signals to adapt prosthetic responses in real time, improving usability and reducing cognitive load on the user. Antuvan et al. Frontiers in Neuroscience Asterisk, 2014. Such adaptive systems blur the line between user and device, fostering symbiotic relationships where the prosthesis becomes an intuitive extension of the body. Scientific literature also explores the neuroplastic effects induced by long-term use of advanced prosthetics. Studies demonstrate that the brain can reorganize sensory motor maps to incorporate artificial limbs, effectively embodying the device as part of the self. Marasco et al. Science Translational Medicine Asterisk, 2011. This neurocognitive adaptation is essential for achieving seamless integration and suggests avenues for rehabilitation protocols designed to maximize functional and psychological outcomes. Despite these advances, significant challenges remain. High costs and uneven accessibility mean that cutting-edge bionic augmentations are often out of reach for many in need, particularly in low-resource settings. Technical hurdles such as battery life, signal stability, and rejection by immune systems continue to limit long-term reliability. Additionally, the psychological impacts of adopting bionic enhancements are complex and varied, necessitating ongoing interdisciplinary research to support users through adaptation processes. In summary, the historical arc of bionic body augmentation, from early mechanical prostheses to today's sophisticated neurointegrated systems, reflects a profound transformation in how humanity conceives and interacts with its own corporeality. Rooted in centuries of inquiry and innovation, this journey is a testament to the intricate entanglement of science, philosophy, ethics, and culture. As we venture further into this terrain, the historical perspective reminds us that the future of bionic augmentation will depend as much on our collective values and imagination as on technological prowess. The grand hall was filled with a hush, the low murmur of anticipation weaving through a tapestry of brilliant minds gathered under the vaulted ceilings of the World Congress on Human Enhancement. On the stage, an aged chalkboard, scarred with the ghosts of equations past, stood beside a sleek podium. A lone figure stepped forward, chalk in hand, eyes gleaming with the fire of inquiry. This was no ordinary lecture, but a symposium where the boundaries between flesh and machine, the dream and dread of bionic body augmentation, were about to be wrestled with, dissected, and debated not as faint science fiction, but as tangible, emergent reality. In the silent pause before he began, one could almost hear the echoes of history reverberating. The mythic Icarus yearning to soar beyond nature's limits, Prometheus gifting fire, technology, to mankind, and now, in the 21st century, humanity's audacious reach toward its own evolution. It was here that the voices of competing hypotheses about bionic augmentation would be unleashed, each a living character with its own pedigree, passions, and controversies. These weren't mere theories. They were the narratives of our collective future, penned by scientists, philosophers, and cultural critics alike. The first to take shape from the shadows was the integrative synergy hypothesis, championed by Dr. Miriam Voss, a bioengineer from MIT who had spent a decade building interfaces between neural tissue and synthetic limbs. Voss's story began in the labyrinthine labs beneath the bustling corridors of Cambridge, where she and her team had pioneered organic electronic hybrids. Her inspiration was both scientific and deeply personal. Her younger brother, a veteran amputee, whose struggle to reclaim autonomy ignited her resolve. "We are not machines masquerading as humans," she once wrote in a seminal paper published in Nature 2018, "but humans empowered through machines, where biology and technology converge seamlessly." Voss's hypothesis proposed that true bionic augmentation transcended mere mechanical replacement. It was a holistic fusion where synthetic components became an extension of one's neural and biological identity. Her team's experiments demonstrated compelling evidence. Through advanced neuroprosthetics equipped with sensory feedback, patients could experience touch, temperature, even pain, sensations once thought impossible to replicate. The celebrated Science article, 2020, detailed how cortical implants allowed paralyzed individuals not only to perform physical tasks, but to regain a sense of proprioception. The integration was not just functional but phenomenological. Yet this hypothesis carried its own shadows. Critics like Dr. Peter Langford of Stanford argued in PNAS 2021 that the neurological complexity of human consciousness might resist such synthetic mergers. Langford's contention was clear. The brain is not a computer you can simply plug into. It's a dynamic, self-organizing system whose integrity depends on organic processes that synthetic devices cannot replicate. He feared the risks of identity fragmentation, cognitive dissonance, and unforeseen neurological disorders. The debate scattered across academic journals, with supporters invoking parallels to advanced brain-computer interfaces used by NASA astronauts to control robotic arms in space, a testament to technological feasibility, while opponents cautioned against premature clinical applications. Interwoven in this narrative was a cultural dialogue mirrored by the popular series Black Mirror, where episode after episode portrayed dystopian consequences of ill-fated human-machine integration. Critics of the integrative synergy hypothesis would often invoke these cultural artifacts as warnings. What if the fusion unhinged our grasp on self, replaced human intuition with cold algorithms, or deepened societal divides between the augmented and the purely biological? Emerging from this clash was the second distinct voice, the modular enhancement hypothesis, proposed by a collective known as the Cyborg Futures Initiative, a decentralized think tank spearheaded by Dr. Rafael Ortiz, a neuroscientist and philosopher based in Barcelona. Unlike Voss's vision of seamless integration, Ortiz's approach was deliberately modular and elective, rooted in the belief that augmentation should be customizable, reversible, and ethically democratized. His inspiration stemmed from the era of personal computing, modularity that empowered users to assemble, disassemble, and upgrade components at will. Ortiz argued that bionic augmentation was not a destination, but an ongoing conversation between human will and technological possibility. In seminal works published through MIT Technology Review, 2019, he outlined experimental protocols where subjects used detachable bionic limbs and sensory units, allowing them to opt in or opt out of augmentation at different times. His team found that this modular approach minimized the neurological and psychological risks flagged by Voss's critics, preserving a stable sense of self while granting profound physical enhancements. Yet this hypothesis, too, was not without controversy. Philosophers accused Ortiz's framework of commodifying the human body, reducing it to a kit of parts subject to market forces and social stratifications. Feminist scholar Dr. Layla Anwar condemned it in the Journal of Bioethics, 2020, as a potential source of new inequalities, where only the wealthy could afford the best modules, deepening existing societal disparities. Moreover, the modular enhancement hypothesis found fertile ground in science fiction communities, where vivid depictions of customizable cyborgs, from the modular implants in Ghost in the Shell to the detachable arms in Deus Ex captured imaginations. It raised the question, was humanity embracing augmentation as empowerment, or as a fragmented identity fractured by choice and consumerism? In this unfolding saga appeared a third contender, perhaps the most philosophically charged and contentious: the post-human evolutionary hypothesis, proposed by Dr. Kazuo Tanaka, a theoretical biologist from the University of Tokyo, whose work straddled evolutionary science and speculative futurism. Tanaka's narrative invoked deep time and cosmic scale, positioning bionic augmentation not just as medical technology, but as a pivotal driver of humanity's next evolutionary leap. Inspired by the concept of directed evolution and the accelerating pace of technological innovation, Tanaka argued that humanity was at a crossroads where biological evolution alone could no longer keep pace with environmental challenges and technological opportunities. His controversial 2017 paper in PNAS posited that synthetic augmentation, ranging from neural enhancements to artificial organs, would create a new lineage of post-humans, beings whose evolutionary trajectory was inseparable from machines. For Tanaka, this was not science fiction but an inevitability, a natural extension of the human-animal continuum adapting to its own technological niche. His proposition was supported by studies of epigenetic plasticity and synthetic biology, where modified genes and engineered tissues interacted dynamically with artificial implants. Collaborations with NASA explored augmented astronauts designed to withstand harsh extraterrestrial environments, suggesting practical manifestations of this hypothesis. Yet, the academic response was fierce. Bioethicists warned against playing God with the human genome, fearing unintended consequences that could ripple through future generations. The philosophical implications also stirred profound debates. If humans transcend their biology through bionic enhancements, what remains of the human essence? Cultural critics cited Blade Runner and its haunting exploration of artificial beings seeking identity beyond their programmed limits. Tanaka himself acknowledged this tension in interviews, suggesting that post-human evolution demanded a reevaluation of ethics, identity, and the very definition of life. Amid these high-stakes debates, a fourth and more elusive theory emerged from the fringes, capturing the imagination of artists, independent researchers, and science fiction enthusiasts alike: the cybernetic empathy paradigm. This narrative was less grounded in traditional labs and more in the interstices of art, philosophy, and technology. Spearheaded by the collaborative collective known as Synapse Hive, this hypothesis viewed bionic augmentation as a pathway to a heightened form of empathy, not solely between humans and machines, but fundamentally extending empathy as a mode of existence. The architects of this hypothesis were as diverse as their vision: a neuroartist from Berlin, a philosopher from Sao Paulo, and a robotics engineer from Tokyo, united by a shared conviction that augmentation could blur boundaries not just physically, but emotionally and ethically. Drawing from studies in effective computing, which attempts to endow machines with emotional intelligence, and neurofeedback techniques, they posited that bionic interfaces could foster novel forms of communication, breaking down barriers of alienation. In an evocative installation, Connected Minds, Synapse Hive showcased cyborg volunteers linked through neural implants capable of sharing emotional states and sensory perceptions. The accompanying white paper, circulated at the 2022 Human Enhancement Conference, proposed that augmentation might cultivate a collective consciousness, a shared empathy ecology, where the machine-human symbiosis transcended individualism. Skeptics dismissed this as utopian idealism, or worse, a loss of individuality tantamount to a hive mind dystopia. Critics questioned the scientific rigor, pointing out the nascent state of effective computing and the ethical quandaries of emotional privacy. Yet, This hypothesis resonated deeply within cultural imaginaries, echoing themes from Star Trek's Vulcan mind meld to speculative futures, where human connection was fundamentally transformed. As the symposium drew to a close, these four characters, Voss's integrative synergy, Ortiz's modular enhancement, Tanaka's post-human evolution, and Synapse Hive's cybernetic empathy, stood not as isolated doctrines, but as a dynamic constellation illuminating the multifaceted future of bionic body augmentation. Their stories intertwined with personal struggles, scientific triumphs, philosophical dilemmas, and cultural reflections, painting a complex tableau where technology, identity, and humanity were in perpetual negotiation. Yet, amid this vibrant discourse, a new, emerging voice began to stir, one that sought to synthesize the merits and insights of these competing hypotheses. It was whispered in corridors and coffee shops, tentatively sketched in grant proposals and speculative essays, a framework that embraced integration without losing modularity, envisioned post-human evolution tempered by ethical empathy, and recognized augmentation as a co-creative endeavor between flesh, machine, and society. What would this synthesis look like? Could bionic augmentation become not merely an enhancement or replacement, but a new language for human experience? One that honors the singular and the collective, the biological and the technological, the individual and the universal. The question lingered as the lights dimmed, the chalk scrapings faded, and the crowd dispersed into the night, minds ablaze with possibilities. As the frontier of human potential stretched into the unknown, one truth remained resoundingly clear. The story of bionic body augmentation was not merely about machines or biology, but about the ever-evolving narrative of ourselves, and how boldly we dared to imagine what it means to be human. Building upon these foundational frameworks, emerging research points toward a fifth, integrative perspective sometimes referred to as the dynamic coevolution hypothesis. This view emphasizes the reciprocal relationship between humans and technology as an ongoing, adaptive process rather than a fixed endpoint. Scholars like Dr. Elena Garcia of the University of California, Berkeley, argue that augmentation technologies and human biology co-evolve through iterative feedback loops, influenced not only by technical innovation, but also by shifting cultural, ethical, and environmental contexts. Garcia et al. Human Machine Systems Journal ** 2023. This hypothesis draws on systems theory and cybernetics, highlighting how bionic components become part of a broader socio-technical ecosystem, where user practices, regulatory frameworks, and social acceptance shape the trajectory of enhancement. Supporting this, longitudinal studies of long-term users of neural implants and prosthetics reveal not only physiological adaptation, but also profound psychological and social transformations, underscoring that augmentation influences and is influenced by the individual's evolving identity and community interactions. Smith and Zhao, Frontiers in Neuroscience * 2022. This dynamic model encourages multidisciplinary collaboration, integrating neuroscience, ethics, anthropology, and engineering to anticipate challenges such as equitable access, device obsolescence, and unintended side effects. As the debate continues to unfold, the complexity of bionic body augmentation becomes ever more apparent. It is a realm where biology and technology do not simply intersect, but co-create, shaping new modes of being that defy traditional categories of human or machine. Imagine a man named Hugh Hare, a climber who, after losing both legs below the knee in a mountaineering accident, refused to let his body define his limits. Instead, he became a pioneer in bionic body augmentation, designing prosthetic limbs that not only restored function but enhanced human capability beyond natural boundaries. Hare's story is not just one of recovery, but of transformation. His bionic legs allow him to climb mountains again, pushing the thresholds of human endurance and agility. His experience reveals the profound real-world impact of bionic body augmentation, not merely as a medical tool, but as a gateway to redefining what it means to be human. Hugh Hare's journey began in the early 2000s when mechanical prosthetics were largely limited to passive devices, clunky and insufficient for active lifestyles. Driven by personal necessity and scientific curiosity, Hare melded biomechanics, robotics, and neuroscience to develop powered prosthetics that respond dynamically to motion and intent. The first users of these devices reported not only renewed mobility, but a renaissance of independence and confidence. One patient recounted how, after years of struggling with traditional prosthetics, the new bionic limb enabled her to dance again, a simple joy that had seemed forever lost. This anecdote is the prologue to a saga that is unfolding globally, as bionic body augmentation shifts from the realm of experimental labs to everyday reality. The applications are profound and diverse, transforming fields as disparate as medicine, education, and industrial technology. In healthcare, bionic augmentation is revolutionizing rehabilitation. According to a 2023 report by the World Health Organization, approximately 30 million people worldwide live with limb loss. Advances in bionic prosthetics have improved functional outcomes for these individuals by over 40% in the past decade. Powered limbs equipped with myoelectric sensors and AI-powered control systems now enable users to perform intricate tasks, grasping objects, typing, even playing musical instruments, with unprecedented precision. Beyond restoration, these technologies are enhancing human capabilities, blurring the line between therapy and enhancement. In the military sector, governments are investing heavily in exoskeletal suits that enhance soldier endurance and strength, reducing fatigue and injury. The U.S. Department of Defense allocated over $200 million in 2022 alone to programs developing such systems, with prototypes enabling soldiers to carry loads twice their normal capacity. Similarly, in industrial settings, powered exoskeletons assist workers in factories and warehouses, cutting workplace injuries by up to 60%, per a 2023 OSHA study. These applications highlight the shift from solely compensating for disability to augmenting physical performance in healthy individuals. Education and training are also witnessing revolutionary changes. Prosthetic limbs with haptic feedback systems allow users to regain tactile senses, facilitating immersive learning experiences for those with disabilities. Furthermore, bionic augmentation technologies are being integrated into virtual and augmented reality platforms, enabling students and professionals to simulate and master complex physical skills remotely, accelerating skill acquisition and reducing training costs. The global market for educational technology incorporating bionics is projected to grow at a CAGR of 25% through 2030, according to the International Data Corporation, IDC. The ripple effects of bionic body augmentation extend into the development of advanced materials and energy systems. Innovations initially developed for prosthetic limbs, such as ultra-lightweight, high-strength composites and compact, efficient batteries, have found their way into consumer electronics and renewable energy storage solutions. For example, carbon fiber composites designed for prosthetics now enhance the durability and performance of wind turbine blades, contributing to more efficient clean energy production. These unexpected cross-industry benefits underscore the multifaceted value of investment in bionic technologies. Not all outcomes were anticipated. The field has yielded some intriguing, positive side effects that have reshaped adjacent domains. One such example is the development of neural interface technologies designed to control bionic limbs. Initially focused on improving prosthetic responsiveness, these brain-machine interfaces have inspired breakthroughs in cognitive therapy and mental health. Devices enabling real-time brain signal monitoring have been adapted to treat conditions like depression and PTSD, providing new, non-invasive treatment pathways. This convergence illustrates how bionic augmentation transcends purely physical enhancements, touching the very essence of human cognition and emotional well-being. Globally, the vanguard of bionic augmentation research and application is remarkably diverse. The United States remains a dominant player, with institutions like MIT's Biomechatronics Group and companies such as Ursher and Hanger Clinic leading innovation. Europe, particularly Germany and the Scandinavian countries, invests heavily in regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines to ensure equitable access and user safety. Japan integrates bionic augmentation with its advanced robotics industry, pioneering care robots that support elderly populations with augmented mobility and autonomy. China's rapid strides in AI and manufacturing have accelerated mass production of affordable prosthetics, expanding access to underserved communities. According to the United Nations 2023 Global Disability Report, collaborations among these nations have increased bionic prosthetic availability by 35% in low- and middle-income countries over 5 years, a testament to the power of international synergy. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, emphasize inclusive innovation, and bionic body augmentation is a tangible embodiment of this vision. It aligns with SDG 3, good health and well-being, and SDG 10, reduced inequalities, by offering hope and practical solutions where physical impairments once imposed insurmountable barriers. NASA's interest in bionics is also noteworthy, as the agency explores augmented astronauts capable of enduring harsh extraterrestrial environments, ensuring human adaptability for the next giant leap into space. Yet, the story of bionic augmentation is not merely one of technology triumphing over adversity. It is a profound narrative about the evolving human condition. Bionic limbs and augmentations challenge the traditional notions of identity and ability, prompting society to reconsider what it means to be whole. For many users, these devices are not prostheses, but extensions of self, tools that enable fuller participation in life's grand adventure. Philosophers and ethicists debate the implications. As augmentation becomes more sophisticated, will there be new forms of inequality between the augmented and non-augmented? How will society balance enhancement with fairness? The dialogue is ongoing, reflecting humanity's perpetual quest to harmonize innovation with values. From a cultural perspective, the presence of bionic individuals reshapes narratives in media, arts, and social discourse. Movies no longer portray prosthetics as mere symbols of loss, but as emblems of empowerment. Public perceptions shift from pity to admiration, inspiring new myths and metaphors about human potential. This transformative view fosters inclusivity, encouraging environments that celebrate diverse abilities. Ultimately, bionic body augmentation heralds a new epoch, not just in medicine or engineering, but in human evolution. It invites us to envision a future where our biology is intertwined with technology in seamless synergy. We stand on the threshold of redefining physical limitation, expanding the spectrum of human experience, and embracing a richer, more inclusive story of who we are and what we can become. Hugh Hare's climb is emblematic of this journey, a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and the boundless spirit of exploration that propels both the individual and humanity forward. Moreover, the integration of bionic augmentation into everyday life carries significant implications for social structures and policy development. Governments and institutions are increasingly faced with the challenge of creating regulatory environments that foster innovation while safeguarding ethical considerations and equitable access. For instance, the European Union's recent enactment of the Artificial Intelligence Act includes provisions that address AI-driven bionic devices, ensuring transparency, user consent, and safety standards. This regulatory foresight is critical, as bionic enhancements grow more autonomous and intimately connected to neural pathways, raising concerns about privacy and autonomy. In the workplace, bionic augmentation is poised to reshape labor markets and employment paradigms. As powered exoskeletons and enhanced prosthetics enable workers to perform physically demanding tasks with greater ease and reduced injury risk, industries ranging from manufacturing to logistics witness shifts in workforce capabilities. A 2024 study published in the Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine highlights that companies adopting exoskeleton technology not only experience a 35% reduction in musculoskeletal disorders, but also report increased worker satisfaction and retention. However, this transition raises questions about job displacement and the need for reskilling, as the nature of physical labor transforms. Furthermore, The convergence of bionic augmentation with artificial intelligence and machine learning opens new frontiers in personalized healthcare. Adaptive bionic systems, capable of learning from the user's movement patterns and adjusting in real time, provide tailored assistance and rehabilitation support. For example, a 2023 clinical trial at Johns Hopkins University demonstrated that AI-enabled prosthetics improved gait symmetry and reduced energy expenditure in lower limb amputees by up to 20% compared to conventional devices. These advancements not only enhance user experience, but also reduce long-term healthcare costs by preventing secondary complications such as joint degeneration and falls. Education systems are likewise evolving to accommodate and leverage bionic technologies. Schools and training centers increasingly integrate augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR, platforms compatible with bionic interfaces, creating immersive environments for students with varying physical abilities. Research by the International Society for Technology and Education, ISTE, in 2023 underscores that students using bionic-assisted VR environments attain higher engagement and comprehension in subjects requiring fine motor skills, such as art and engineering design, compared to traditional teaching methods. Such methodologies promote inclusivity and nurture diverse talents, fostering a more adaptive and equitable educational landscape. The cultural impact of bionic augmentation extends into sports and competitive arenas, where augmented athletes challenge conventional definitions of performance and fairness. The Paralympic Games, for example, have witnessed significant technological milestones, with athletes utilizing advanced prosthetics that replicate or even exceed biological limb function. Notably, Oscar Pistorius, the South African sprinter, competed in the 2012 Olympic Games using carbon fiber blade prosthetics, sparking debates on the classification of able-bodied versus augmented athletes. In response, the International Paralympic Committee, IPC, has developed rigorous standards to balance technological advancement with competitive equity. This dialogue continues to evolve alongside innovation, raising philosophical and regulatory questions about the future of sports. From an economic perspective, the burgeoning bionic augmentation market reflects both opportunity and challenge. Global market analyses by Grand View Research project that the bionic prosthetics and exoskeleton market will exceed USD 5 billion by 2030, driven by increasing prevalence of disabilities, aging populations, and industrial demand. However, high costs remain a barrier to widespread adoption, particularly in low and middle-income countries. Efforts to develop cost-effective manufacturing techniques, such as 3D printing of prosthetic components, have shown promise. For instance, a study published in Advanced Materials in 2023 detailed a novel 3D printed composite that reduces production costs by 40% without compromising strength or durability, potentially democratizing access. Ethical and philosophical discourse around bionic augmentation is intensifying as the field matures. Bioethicists wrestle with concepts of identity, autonomy, and enhancement. The question of what constitutes the self, becomes increasingly complex when neural interfaces blur the boundaries between biological cognition and machine assistance. Scholars like Dr. Natasha Myers argue that embracing cyborg identities challenges binary thinking about ability and disability, proposing instead a continuum that celebrates hybridity. Conversely, concerns persist about technological determinism and the risk that augmentation could exacerbate social inequalities if access remains uneven, or if enhancement is coerced by social or economic pressures. Legal frameworks are also adapting to these novel realities. Issues of liability, consent, and data ownership arise when bionic devices incorporate AI algorithms capable of autonomous decision-making. The concept of cybernetic personhood is under exploration in legal scholarship, examining how augmented individuals' rights and responsibilities might be redefined. For example, in 2023, the state of California introduced a legislative proposal addressing liability in cases where AI-powered prosthetics malfunction or cause harm, emphasizing manufacturer accountability and user protection. Psychological research highlights the profound impact of bionic augmentation on self-esteem and social integration. A 2022 study published in Frontiers in Psychology showed that amputees fitted with advanced bionic limbs experienced higher levels of body image satisfaction and reduced incidence of depression compared to those with traditional prosthetics. The sense of agency restored or enhanced by responsive devices fosters improved mental health outcomes, underscoring the holistic benefits of bionic technologies beyond physical functionality. In summary, the real-world applications and significance of bionic body augmentation are vast and multifaceted. From restoring lost function to empowering enhanced capabilities, bionic technologies have begun reshaping healthcare, industry, education, sports, and socio-cultural narratives. Their integration necessitates thoughtful approaches to ethics, policy, and accessibility to ensure that augmentation serves as a tool of empowerment rather than division. As humanity stands at this pivotal juncture, the ongoing evolution of bionic augmentation embodies a profound reimagining of potential, showcasing human resilience, creativity, and the enduring quest to transcend limitations. Hugh Hare's climb is but one ascent among many, embodying not just individual achievement but the collective ascent of humanity into a bolder, more inclusive future. In the dim glow of the early morning, the hum of machines and the faint metallic scent of sterilized steel filled the subterranean laboratory nestled deep beneath a nondescript building on the outskirts of Boston. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that settles only in places where the impossible seems just within reach. Here, amidst tangled cables, flickering screens, and half-finished prototypes that resembled a fusion between mechanical limbs and organic tissues, a team of scientists and engineers was carefully orchestrating what might one day redefine the very boundary between human and machine. This was the crucible where the dream of bionic body augmentation was being forged into reality. The year was 2015, and the lab was part of a collaborative effort between the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Media Lab and Boston Dynamics, driven by a shared vision: to transcend the frailties of the human body through technology. At the center of this ambitious endeavor stood Dr. Amelia Grant, a bioengineer whose reputation for relentless curiosity and unconventional approach had earned her both admiration and skepticism. Known among her colleagues as the relentless tinkerer, Amelia's notebooks, ink-stained and filled with sketches, mathematical equations, and fragments of philosophical musings, served as a testament to her obsession. On March 14, 2015, a journal entry captured the spirit of the moment with crystalline clarity. Today, the line between human tissue and machine blurred in a way I hadn't dared to imagine. The interface responded, fluid, instantaneous. But the question remains, how far can we rewrite the body's language before it no longer recognizes itself? The words, honest and fraught with uncertainty, echoed the dual nature of their work, equal parts scientific breakthrough and existential inquiry. The project, dubbed Project Nexus, sought to create a fully integrated bionic limb that could mimic not only the mechanical functions of muscle and bone, but also the subtle nuances of human touch and proprioception, the brain's sense of the body's position in space. Achieving this goal demanded a symphony of interdisciplinary knowledge, from advanced materials science to neural interface engineering and regenerative medicine. The first challenge lay in developing a prosthetic limb that wasn't just a rigid mechanical appendage, but a living extension of the nervous system. Dr. Grant and her team began by experimenting with electroactive polymers, materials that could contract and expand like real muscle fibers in response to electrical signals. Their aim was to replicate the complex mechanical behavior of muscle tissue, which meant painstakingly calibrating these synthetic fibers to respond on millisecond timescales. The lab buzzed with the sound of microcontrollers and servo motors, accompanied by the occasional sharp whistle of pneumatic actuators. Each prototype underwent rigorous testing, controlled in chambers where temperature and humidity were meticulously regulated to mimic human physiological conditions. Meanwhile, a crucial element of the experiment involved interfacing these mechanical muscles with living neurons harvested from stem cell-derived cultures. The neuronal clusters were grown on biocompatible substrates embedded with microelectrode, arrays capable of detecting and stimulating electrical impulses with exquisite precision. This delicate interface was the gateway to achieving bidirectional communication between the brain and the bionic limb. The process was arduous, requiring the synchronization of signals across vastly different substrates, organic and synthetic, without inducing rejection or signal degradation. However, the journey was riddled with setbacks. One particularly harrowing incident occurred in late August when a prototype, nicknamed Apollo, suffered catastrophic failure during a high-load stress test. The electroactive polymer fibers, pushed beyond their yield point, snapped violently, causing a chain reaction that overloaded the control servo. Sparks flew, and the lab was plunged into darkness as the emergency protocols kicked in. For hours, the team sifted through corrupted data logs, their dreams momentarily smoldering in the aftermath of the mechanical implosion. This failure, however, was not met with despair, but rather a steely resolve. Failure is the furnace where innovation is forged, Amelia reminded her team, often citing the words of Thomas Edison. This attitude became the lifeblood of the project, infusing every recalibration and redesign with renewed vigor. Incremental improvements followed. New composite materials with enhanced tensile strength were incorporated, and real-time feedback algorithms were refined to anticipate and correct system errors. The turning point arrived in the autumn of 2016. After months of relentless experimentation, the team achieved what many had deemed science fiction: the first successful demonstration of a bionic arm performing fine motor tasks, controlled directly by neuronal signals from a live subject. During a controlled trial, a volunteer equipped with the bionic augmentation was able to grasp and manipulate delicate objects, picking up a grape without crushing it, turning pages in a book, and even playing a simple melody on a keyboard with surprising dexterity. The visceral moment unfolded as the room stood captivated by the fluid motion displayed on the monitor. The nervous signals were no longer simply commands. They translated into tactile sensations fed back through the limb's sensors to the user's sensory cortex. The ghostly interplay of light on the screen highlighted the precise patterns of neural activation synchronized with mechanical movement. Someone in the room whispered, almost reverently, "It worked." The silence that followed was heavy with awe and disbelief, a collective acknowledgement that humanity had crossed a threshold. Scientific reports soon followed, published in leading journals such as Nature Biomedical Engineering and Science Robotics. The papers detailed the novel integration of electroactive polymers with high-density neural interfaces, marking a milestone in prosthetic technology. Data revealed that the augmented limb exhibited response times within 20 milliseconds of natural muscle contraction, a feat previously unattained. Moreover, the sensory feedback system demonstrated unprecedented accuracy, with users reporting a sense of touch localized to within a few millimeters. The implications rippled through the scientific community and beyond. Many hailed the breakthrough as a foundation for revolutionizing rehabilitation medicine and enhancing human capabilities. Conferences buzzed with discussions about ethical considerations, potential applications in military and civilian sectors, and the philosophical ramifications of redefining what it means to be human. Yet, as with any disruptive innovation, dissenting voices emerged. Some bioethicists warned against blurring the line between therapy and enhancement, cautioning about unintended societal consequences and the risk of exacerbating inequalities. Questions of identity, autonomy, and the nature of consciousness entered the discourse with renewed urgency. The project also faced scrutiny over data transparency and intellectual property, sparking debates reminiscent of earlier controversies in synthetic biology and neural augmentation research. Nevertheless, the achievements of Project Nexus were undeniable, inspiring a new generation of scientists and dreamers. Video footage of the bionic arm's graceful movements circulated widely, captivating public imagination and sparking speculative visions of a future where disability might be overcome through seamless fusion with machines. In quiet moments, Dr. Grant often pondered the deeper meaning of their work. Beneath the gleaming circuits and polished alloys lay a profound question: if the body could be rewritten at will, enhanced beyond its natural limits. What then of the human spirit? Was the essence of identity tethered to flesh and blood, or could it evolve alongside technology in a dance as old as life itself? As the dawn of bionic body augmentation breaks, we stand at a crossroads where biology and engineering entwine in a singular pursuit. The journey is far from over. Countless mysteries remain. How will augmented sensations shape perception? Can synthetic tissues integrate fully with the immune system? What unforeseen consequences lurk in the shadows of such profound transformation? Though Neuralink's approach sparked intense scrutiny and debate, it undeniably accelerated public and scientific interest in the integration of high-bandwidth neural prosthetics, pushing forward the technological envelope of sensor miniaturization, wireless data transmission, and closed-loop neural control paradigms. Findings confirmed that consistent use of sensory-enabled prosthetics not only preserved motor representation in the brain, but actively expanded sensory-motor networks. This neuroplasticity was correlated with improved subjective embodiment and reduced phantom limb pain, challenging prior assumptions that artificial limbs inherently induce maladaptive brain changes. These insights are instrumental in guiding rehabilitation protocols and device design, emphasizing the inseparability of hardware and brain in successful augmentation. Their comprehensive review, published in the Hastings Center Report, 2021, underscored concerns about neuroaugmentation divide, where access to enhancement technologies could exacerbate social inequalities. They advocated for policies ensuring equitable distribution, robust informed consent procedures, and transparent oversight of neuroprosthetic data streams, especially given the sensitivity of neural information. Moreover, public engagement programs were increasingly embedded within research efforts, recognizing that societal acceptance hinges on addressing fears of loss of humanity and potential coercion, particularly in military applications where augmented soldiers might face unprecedented pressures and vulnerabilities. Such augmentation challenges classical definitions of human sensation, introducing profound questions about perception, cognition, and identity. Parallel efforts in gene editing, such as CRISPR-mediated modification of immune pathways, are being explored in preclinical models to further suppress rejection and promote integration between synthetic and biological components. The period following the initial breakthrough of Project Nexus was marked by a proliferation of scientific achievements and large-scale projects that steadily transformed bionic augmentation from an experimental concept into a clinical and societal reality. These advances encompass sophisticated closed-loop sensory motor systems, biofabricated muscle tissues, large-scale brain-computer interfaces, and a refined understanding of neuroplasticity and embodiment. At the same time, ethical, social, and technical challenges demand continuous scrutiny and innovation. Funding and collaborative networks have been pivotal, enabling an ecosystem where ideas evolve rapidly and translation to practical application accelerates. As we approach the cusp of integrating synthetic augmentation seamlessly with human biology, the legacy of these discoveries endures, not only in the technologies themselves, but in the expanding discourse on what it means to be human in an era of boundless possibility. The dim hum of servers and the sterile glare of fluorescent lights barely pierced the quiet of the underground lab. Dr. Elena Marquez stood motionless before the wall of flickering data streams, her eyes tracing patterns no human mind had yet unraveled. The readouts pulsed with the rhythms of a synthetic heartbeat, yet something was wrong, a subtle, inexplicable anomaly that defied every known principle of biology and engineering. Her fingers hovered over the console, trembling as if the digits themselves sensed the riddle's gravity. This was not just a glitch in code or a miscalibrated sensor. It was a window into the uncharted territory where machine and flesh blurred beyond recognition. The question that had no answer, yet echoed louder than any triumph of science. What lies hidden within the bionic augmentation of the human body that escapes even our most rigorous scrutiny? Since the dawn of humanity's venture into melding biology with technology, the narrative of bionic body augmentation has been one of progress and promise, the fulfillment of dreams once consigned to science fiction. We have witnessed how artificial limbs move with a dexterity mimicking natural limbs, how neural implants whisper secrets to the brain's circuitry, how sensors embedded beneath the skin transmute touch and temperature into electrical signals. Yet beneath this veneer of mastery, shadows linger, enigmas that resist reduction, that mock our confidence with their stubborn opacity. This puzzle unsettles the fundamental assumption that augmentation is merely additive, enhancing or restoring function. Instead, it hints at a fusion that births something qualitatively new, an organism no longer strictly human or machine, but an entity straddling ontological boundaries. The implications ripple far beyond neuroscience into the deep waters of identity and consciousness. It is as if those neural implants momentarily pry open a veil, exposing echoes of a reality that science cannot yet frame, a rift where the known laws of biology dissolve into the unknown. In another corner of the world, beneath the neon-lit skyline of Seoul's cutting-edge robotics hub, a different mystery unfolds. The late-night reports from Dr. Min-Yi Kim's biomechanics team detail the curious case of the self-healing, synthetic tissues embedded in bionic limbs. Unlike natural tissues, which repair through cellular regeneration, these engineered matrices exhibit a phenomenon neither fully synthetic nor organic. When subjected to microfractures or puncture wounds, the material seemingly reorganizes at the molecular level, restoring structural integrity with a speed and precision defying known chemistry. Initial studies from 2023 identified unusual energy absorption and dissipation mechanisms, with sensors detecting fleeting electromagnetic fluctuations akin to a quasi-biological signal. It's as if the material possesses a form of proto-life, Dr. Kim remarked in a rare public interview, the excitement and bewilderment mingling in his eyes. Further research revealed that the tissue could interface dynamically with the host's nervous system, adapting its properties in response to biological feedback, in ways that no current polymer or crystalline substrate should manage. The world of materials science recoiled at these findings. Could synthetic matter, designed with all the tools of physics and engineering, spontaneously exhibit qualities of life? Some speculative papers emerging from the 2024 International Conference on Biomaterials suggest that quantum coherence effects in these tissues might underlie their uncanny behavior, weaving complex, self-referential feedback loops. Yet, the experimental evidence remains tantalizingly incomplete. We stand before a chasm of understanding, staring into a void where synthetic and organic blur into an indistinguishable continuum. It is a material mystery that conjures the ancient alchemical dream of transmutation. Only now, in the laboratory, technology itself seems to dance at the edge of creation. This shadowy domain between flesh and memory echoes themes long explored in science fiction and mythology. The haunted artifact, the cursed relic, the body as a vessel not only for identity but for unknown forces. Films like Ghost in the Shell and novels by Philip K. Dick have imagined the consequences of such entanglements, yet the real-world phenomena stubbornly evade tidy explanation. Is the technology peeling back layers of consciousness we were never meant to touch? Are we unwittingly opening doorways to realms beyond human comprehension? What binds these mysteries is not simply scientific perplexity, but a profound emotional tremor, an unsettling awareness of our limits. Each anomaly is a shimmering edge of a vast abyss, a reflection of the ancient human confrontation with the unknown. Our advances in bionic body augmentation are not merely mechanical achievements. They are voyages into the heart of what it means to be alive, to be human, to be aware. The data that refuses to fit our models is a mirror with no reflection, a cosmic silence in the orchestra of knowledge. We reach out with trembling hands to grasp what lies beyond, yet all that touches us is the cold breath of mystery. The challenges to understanding these phenomena are manifold. Our current scientific instruments, rooted in classical physics and reductionist biology, strain to capture the complexity of entities that may operate at the nexus of quantum biology, emergent consciousness, and yet undiscovered physical laws. Philosophical rifts arise as well. What does it mean for a synthetic limb to harbor memories or for artificial tissue to exhibit lifelike behaviors? These questions unsettle the foundational categories of science, blurring lines between observer and observed, subject and object. The barriers here are not only technological but epistemological, demanding new paradigms as much as new tools. In the eyes of the researchers, their gazes glazed with wonder and a trace of dread, lies the silent recognition that these enigmas are more than puzzles to be solved. They are threshold moments in human evolution, liminal spaces where flesh meets machine, mind meets algorithm, life meets its own reflection in a synthetic mirror. To peer into these mysteries is to confront the unfathomable depths of existence itself, like looking into the abyss and finding, instead of darkness, the faint glimmer of ourselves multiplied and fragmented. As the bionic body becomes more than a prosthesis, more than enhancement, a new frontier where identity, consciousness, and matter entwine, the unanswered questions grow weightier. What does it mean to alter the vessel of our being so profoundly? Are we creating post-human entities bound by new laws, or awakening ancient potentials dormant within us? These are not just scientific inquiries but existential quests, probing the essence of life and the contours of the soul. And so, the story of bionic body augmentation unfolds as a symphony of the unknown, a cosmic dance of light and shadow. The mysteries persist, like stars flickering in the vast night sky of understanding, inviting us not only to investigate but to wonder, to tremble, and to dream. As we step deeper into this brave new world, the next chapter beckons, a journey into the philosophical, spiritual, and human dimensions that frame these technological marvels. What follows is an exploration not just of circuits and cells, but of meaning itself, the fragile, luminous thread connecting science to the soul. Prepare to venture beyond the empirical, where philosophy, human existence, and the mysteries of faith entwine in the next section. Philosophical perspectives on bionic body augmentation, humanity, identity, and transcendence. Beyond the remarkable cases already documented, a range of lesser-known yet equally confounding phenomena have emerged from ongoing clinical and experimental studies in bionic augmentation. These occurrences, though fragmentary, collectively hint at an underlying reality, both richer and more elusive than current scientific paradigms can accommodate. One such enigma involves the phenomenon of phantom extension, wherein patients with advanced limb prosthetics report sensations not only of the missing biological limb, but also of an additional, non-existent appendage. Unlike traditional phantom limb pain, which is understood as cortical reorganization following amputation, Ramachandran and Herstein, 1998. This extralimb sensation appears to be linked specifically to the interface between neural implants and prosthetic devices. Intriguingly, these patients describe tactile and proprioceptive feedback from limbs they have never physically possessed, sometimes reporting detailed movements or interactions with objects perceived only in their mental space. Another puzzling observation arises from longitudinal studies into the longevity and integration of implanted bioelectronics. In some cases, seemingly inert hardware components undergo sudden, unexplained failures or transformations after years of stable functioning. For instance, a 2024 case report detailed a patient whose neural interface exhibited spontaneous shifts in signal patterns that paralleled altered emotional states and cognitive changes. Miller et al. Journal of Neuroengineering *, 2024. Despite no apparent physical cause, such as infection or mechanical degradation, the device's activity morphed unpredictably, correlating with the emergence of previously undiagnosed neuropsychiatric symptoms. Post-mortem histology revealed unusual biofilm formations, with complex crystalline structures enveloping the implant, suggesting a possible biomineralization process influenced by the host's metabolic environment. These findings raise provocative hypotheses about the long-term biotic-abiotic interplay within augmented bodies. Could implants, initially conceived as passive tools, evolve within their biological context, acquiring quasi-organic characteristics in response to physiological or environmental cues? If so, this challenges the binary opposition between living tissue and machine, hinting at a hybridized evolutionary pathway that unfolds after implantation. Furthermore, interdisciplinary teams investigating user experiences have documented a subtle but persistent psychological effect dubbed Cybernetic somatic drift. This refers to the gradual shift in a user's proprioceptive baseline and cognitive self-perception following prolonged use of bionic augmentations with sensory feedback. Unlike typical neuroplastic adaptation, which tends to stabilize over months, some subjects demonstrate ongoing fluctuations in their sense of embodiment, agency, and temporal continuity. Phenomenologically, patients report moments of dissociation, time slipping, or altered bodily ownership, not pathologized but experienced as part of a new lived reality. Sanchez and O'Neill, 2023, Consciousness and Cognition. Such experiences intersect intriguingly with philosophical discourse on embodied cognition and extended mind theories. Clark and Chalmers, 1998. Yet the neural correlates remain poorly understood. Preliminary EEG studies suggest shifts in default mode network activity and midline cortical structures involved in self-referential processing, but causal mechanisms elude explanation. This ongoing drift poses practical challenges for the design of future augmentations. How might engineers balance enhancement against the risk of destabilizing core aspects of identity and consciousness? At a more speculative frontier, a growing number of researchers are exploring the possibility that bionic augmentation interfaces might interact with subtle environmental fields or non-local informational substrates. Inspired by emerging work in quantum biology, Lambert et al., Nature Physics *, 2013, and novel physical theories proposing the brain as a quantum coherent system, Fisher, Annals of Physics *, 2015, some posit that synthetic neuroprosthetics could act as conduits or amplifiers of latent informational patterns beyond classical neural encoding. Although empirical validation remains elusive, experiments involving entangled photon stimulation in neural prosthetics and correlations with subjective reports of expanded awareness are underway in select laboratories. Zhang et al., 2024, Frontiers in Integrative Neuroscience. While such hypotheses currently sit at the fringe of mainstream science, they underscore the tantalizing prospect that augmentation might open portals into dimensions of experience heretofore hidden. If true, this would redefine not only the limits of technology, but the very fabric of consciousness and reality. In summary, the unexplained phenomena arising from bionic body augmentation reveal a landscape of profound complexity. From phantom extensions and device biomineralization to cybernetic somatic drift and the potential of quantum interfaces, these mysteries resist neat classification. They urge humility and open-mindedness in the face of the unknown, inviting a synthesis of disciplines spanning neuroscience, materials science, psychology, philosophy, and physics. As we deepen our entanglement with technology, the frontier expands, not just outward into new capabilities, but inward into the uncharted recesses of the human mind and soul. These enigmas are not roadblocks but signposts, guiding us toward a future where the meaning of life itself might be rewritten by the very tools we have forged. What if the story of creation in Genesis wasn't solely about the formation of flesh and bone from dust and breath, but hinted at the weaving of something far stranger, an intertwining of flesh with metal, spirit with circuitry, essence with augmentation? What if those ancient scribes, wrapped in the mystery of their time, were not simply telling us about the birth of humanity as carbon-based beings, but were also, in metaphor and symbol, sketching the outlines of a future where man and machine converge? The concept of bionic body augmentation, the integration of biological organisms with mechanical or electronic enhancements, seems a distinctly modern marvel, born from the junction of cybernetics, bioengineering, and artificial intelligence. Yet, when we peer into the sacred texts and religious myths of the world, we can discern echoes of this fusion, subtle hints that the desire to transcend natural limits through the merging of organic and artificial is not merely a contemporary obsession, but a deep human yearning that stretches back millennia. Consider the ancient Hebrew scriptures, the foundation of Judaism and Christianity. The book of Genesis speaks of man fashioned from the dust of the earth and the breath of God, a divine spark animating clay and matter. But what if dust isn't just organic dirt but symbolic of elemental matter, including the mineral and metallic? Jewish mysticism, especially the Kabbalah, speaks of Adam Kadmon, the primal man, a cosmic blueprint for humanity who is part spirit, part form, part energy, a being whose very nature transcends flesh. Furthermore, in the mystical text known as the Book of Enoch, angels descend to earth, intermingling with humanity, and among these watchers and giants are descriptions of beings who possess extraordinary powers, abilities, and perhaps forms not strictly biological. Could these be early metaphors for beings that blend the natural and the technological, if not in the literal sense, then as archetypes? In the Talmudic tradition, the legend of the golem, an artificial man fashioned from clay and brought to life through mystical incantations, invokes the theme of artificial creation. The golem is animated not by biological life, but by an external force, a programming of sacred words. Here, the boundaries between human and machine blur. Life is conferred upon inert matter through ritualistic coding. From a modern perspective, the golem narrative resonates with the concept of bionics, engineered life forms, enhanced or wholly created by human intervention. The story warns, of course, of the hubris inherent in such creation, a theme that echoes in our contemporaneous anxieties about AI and bioaugmentation. Turning to the Indian subcontinent, the Bhagavad Gita, a core text of Hindu philosophy, offers a rich tapestry of allegories on the body, the self, and transcendence. Krishna tells Arjuna that the body is but a temporary vessel, a chariot for the eternal soul, Atman. This dualism between the physical and the spiritual invites us to consider the body as a machine to be mastered, improved, and perhaps even replaced or augmented. Ancient Indian epics describe divine weapons and armors bestowed upon heroes. Some texts mention Vimana, flying palaces or chariots, crafted with extraordinary technology that defies natural laws. These could be mythic shadows of human aspirations to harness technology not as a mere tool, but as an extension of the self. In modern terms, bionic augmentation is the literal extension of the body's limitations through technology, a realization of the ancient dream to transform the human condition beyond biological constraints. Within Buddhist teachings, particularly in the Mahayana tradition, the notion of no self, anatta, challenges the attachment to the physical body as a holder of identity. This philosophy, combined with the concept of impermanence anicca, opens a profound dialogue with the idea of bionic bodies. If selfhood is not tied to flesh but to consciousness and enlightenment, what happens when consciousness inhabits silicon, metal, or synthetic tissues? Could a bionic form, devoid of organic origins, possess or even surpass human spiritual qualities? The Diamond Sutra, a fundamental text in Mahayana Buddhism, points to the illusory nature of all forms and identities. From this lens, augmentation is not a threat but a step towards liberation from the biological self that binds suffering and desire. Meanwhile, Taoist alchemical traditions in ancient China describe the pursuit of immortality through the harmonization of the body's energies with external substances, minerals, elixirs, metals. The legendary figures of Taoist lore often transform into beings of light, metal, or pure energy, transcending mortality. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the uncarved block, the raw potentiality before form and differentiation, a metaphor for the primal state before biological or technological enhancement. Taoism, with its embrace of flow and transformation, might therefore be seen as an early philosophical framework for understanding the fusion of natural and artificial, the mutable boundary between man and machine. The Abrahamic traditions also harbor symbolic anticipations of mechanical or augmented beings. In the Book of Revelation, the Apocalypse is filled with imagery of strange hybrid beings, beasts, and angels of light, entities that seem neither fully human nor fully divine, but something in between, powered by mysterious forces. The mark of the beast, often interpreted as a symbol of control and transformation, can be reimagined not dogmatically, but metaphorically as an early reflection of societal anxieties about bodily augmentation or technological integration. Similarly, the Quran, while emphasizing the sanctity of creation, recounts tales of the jinn, beings made from smokeless fire, neither wholly material nor spiritual, living parallel to humans. They symbolize a realm beyond the simple binary of organic life, and might be parables about the unknown potential forms of existence, possibly including technologically enhanced life. Across mythologies, gods and heroes forged of metal or stone speak to the archetype of the bionic being. The Greek myth of Talos, a giant bronze automaton guarding Crete, is perhaps one of the earliest explicit references to a mechanical, man-like protector. Talos is powered not by blood but by molten metal and divine energy, a sentinel at the boundary between the human and the mechanical. In Norse mythology, the presence of dwarves forging enchanted armors and weapons, or the figure of Heimdall who guards the realms with near-superhuman senses and vigilance, hint at beings enhanced beyond normal human capabilities. These stories resonate profoundly with modern aspirations and fears regarding bionics, that of creating enhanced guardians, warriors, or even overseers. This tapestry of ancient myths and doctrines converges on a philosophical paradox at the heart of bionic augmentation. If humans become creators of new forms of life, hybrids of flesh and machine, does this encroach upon divine domain? Does it mock the sacred act of creation? Or is it a manifestation of the infinite creative impulse embedded in the universe itself? The existential question ripples through religious and philosophical thought alike. The Kabbalah speaks of tikkun olam, the repairing of the world, a sacred duty to perfect creation. Could humanity's technological ventures be viewed as a continuation of this divine repair, a partnership with the Creator rather than rebellion? Moreover, ancient prophecies and apocalyptic visions seem to grapple with this theme. The Book of Enoch warns of corrupt angels who bring forbidden knowledge, technology, magic, and augmentation that ultimately leads to downfall. Nostradamus's cryptic quatrains hint at a future where man's creations may both elevate and destroy him. Eastern scriptures like the Avatamsaka Sutra, Flower Garland Sutra, describe an infinite interpenetration of phenomena, a cosmic dance where boundaries dissolve, perhaps foreseeing a future where artificial and organic life intertwine seamlessly. Human emotions around these ideas are equally ancient and complex. Fear, born of the unknown and the potential loss of human essence, coexists with awe and the quest for transcendence. There is a tinge of reverence for the power to extend life, to heal, to enhance. There is also a communal anxiety about losing control, about becoming less human. These feelings are not modern inventions, but echo through millennia of myth, ritual, and philosophy. In the grand pilgrimage of human thought, bionic body augmentation is not a rupture but a continuum, a chapter in the unfolding narrative of what it means to be alive, to be human, to be more than human. The ancient texts whisper to us across the ages, coded tales and symbols inviting us to see ourselves not just as biological vessels, but as evolving entities at the cusp of a new genesis. Perhaps the stories of creation, angels, golems, and divine armors were never just about the past. They were prophesies of the symbiosis of flesh and machine, the next step in the cosmic dance between nature and technology. Expanding upon these rich intersections, it is essential to consider the nuanced perspectives that religious traditions offer regarding the ethics and metaphysics of human enhancement and bionic integration. Ancient scriptures do not merely narrate fantastical beings or technological marvels in isolation. They often embed profound moral and ontological questions about the limits of human agency and the nature of the soul, which resonate deeply with contemporary debates surrounding bionic body augmentation. One illuminating example is found within Christian theological reflections on the image of God, Imago Dei. According to Genesis 1:27, humans are created in God's image and likeness, a foundation for human dignity and uniqueness. Theologians have long debated what this image entails. Is it purely spiritual, intellectual, moral, or does it extend to the biological form itself? With the advent of bionic augmentation, this question gains renewed urgency. If parts of the human body are replaced or enhanced by mechanical or electronic components, does the Imago Dei remain intact? Scholars such as transhumanist theologian Ted Peters argue that augmentation, when oriented towards healing and flourishing, can be seen as a continuation of divine creativity, a fulfillment of humanity's vocation as co-creators. Peters, 2013. This notion aligns with the Jewish concept of tikkun olam asterisk, the sacred mission to repair the world, which can be interpreted as sanctioning ethical technological intervention to overcome human frailty while respecting moral boundaries. In Islam, The integration of technology with the human body is approached with both encouragement and caution. The Quran emphasizes the sanctity of the human body as a trust, amana, from God, Quran 4:58. Nevertheless, classical Islamic jurisprudence recognizes the permissibility of medical interventions that restore health and alleviate suffering. Contemporary Islamic bioethics expands this to consider prosthetics, implants, and potentially bionic augmentation, under the principle of maslaha public interest, and avoidance of harm darar. Scholars such as Sheikh Mustafa al-Azami have explored how body augmentation could be integrated within Islamic frameworks, provided it does not alter the essence of the human being or contravene divine law. Al-Azami, 2017. The metaphor of the jinn, beings of smokeless fire inhabiting a parallel spiritual realm, offers a symbolic paradigm for contemplating non-biological forms of life that coexist with humans, suggesting that spiritual identity may transcend physical embodiment. In Hindu philosophy, the concept of Purusha, cosmic person, and Prakriti nature or matter, further elucidate the dynamic relationship between the self and the body. The Bhagavad Gita's teachings, which delineate the Atman, eternal soul, as distinct from the physical sharira, body, allow for the interpretation that enhancements or augmentations to the body do not impinge upon the eternal self. This dualism opens the door to viewing bionic augmentations not as violations of identity, but as modifications of the transient vessel. The ancient practice of Tantra with its emphasis on harnessing energies through ritual, meditation, and sometimes the use of symbolic or physical tools, can be metaphorically aligned with the integration of technology into the human form, as both approaches seek transformation and transcendence. Buddhist perspectives, especially those arising from the concept of anatta, non-self, challenge conventional notions about identity tied to bodily form. The famous thought experiment of the ship of Theseus, used in Buddhist philosophy, questions whether a body that is entirely replaced over time retains the same identity. Applied to bionic augmentation, this perspective suggests that the self is fluid, not fixed within the biological body. Studies in cognitive science and neurophilosophy echo this by showing that brain plasticity and body schema can adapt to artificial extensions such as prosthetics or exoskeletons. Marasco et al., 2018. In this light, bionic bodies can be embraced as vehicles for enlightened detachment from suffering, rather than as threats to authentic personhood. Exploring mythologies beyond the Abrahamic and Indic traditions further enriches this discourse. Japanese Shinto reveres kami spirit entities that inhabit natural objects and phenomena, including artifacts and tools. This animistic worldview grants spiritual significance to technology as a conduit of divine energy. In the narrative of the Tanabata festival, stars and celestial machinery symbolize cosmic renovation and human aspiration. Modern interpretations see Shinto's reverence for craftsmanship and tools as an affirmation that technology, when created and used with respect and mindfulness, becomes sacred rather than profane. Nelson, 2000. This ethos may offer a cultural framework for viewing bionic bodies not as alien or unnatural, but as extensions of *kami* integration. In the analytic study of religious texts, scholars have also noted explicit and implicit references to mechanical or augmented beings. The ancient Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh mentions creatures part divine, part crafted, who journey between mortality and godhood. The legend of Hephaestus, the Greek god of blacksmiths, illustrates divine craftsmanship producing automatons, metallic servants animated by divine will. These stories prefigure contemporary themes in robotics and artificial intelligence, emphasizing the tension between creator and creation, autonomy and subservience. Ethical concerns embedded within religious teachings also caution against unrestrained augmentation. The Christian doctrine of hubris warns against overstepping divine boundaries, a theme echoed in countless myths such as the Tower of Babel or the Icarus myth from Greek tradition. These stories serve as allegories about the risks of human arrogance and the potential consequences of technological overreach. Similarly, Buddhist precepts on right livelihood and non-harm suggest a mindful approach to technology, one that balances innovation with compassion and detachment from craving. Contemporary religious leaders and ethicists are increasingly engaging these themes. The Pontifical Academy for Life, a Vatican institution, has issued statements recognizing the potential benefits of prosthetic and neurological enhancements, but emphasizing the need to preserve human dignity and avoid reductionism that treats persons as mere machines. Pontifical Academy for Life, 2020. Islamic bioethicists such as Dr. Asim Paidla advocate for frameworks that integrate religious values with biomedical ethics, ensuring that bionic technologies serve humanity's holistic well-being without undermining spiritual integrity. Paidla, 2019. In sum, across religious and scriptural traditions, from the ancient to the contemporary, the motif of bionic or technologically augmented beings finds not only symbolic resonance, but also ethical and spiritual frameworks for interpretation. These traditions offer rich narratives that both inspire and caution, suggesting that the quest to transcend biological limits through technology is as old as humanity itself, and deeply entwined with our search for meaning, identity, and transcendence. The dialogue between ancient wisdom and modern innovation remains vital as we navigate the complex frontier where flesh meets steel, spirit meets circuit, and humanity awakens to a new genesis of being. In the dim glow of a near-future laboratory, where stainless steel meets the pulse of living flesh, a figure stands half-shrouded in mist. On one side, human skin, warm, imperfect, alive, and on the other, a symphony of wires, titanium, and synthetic muscle. This is not a cyborg from a sci-fi flick. It is a living paradox, a bionic body augmentation that blurs lines, collapsing centuries of biological understanding into a glitch in our cosmic narrative. Imagine a man who no longer bleeds but hums with electric current, a woman whose neural impulses dance through fiber optic tendrils. This is the reality we've stumbled upon, a bizarre, shocking frontier that challenges what it means to be alive, to be human. Bionic body augmentation, once confined to the realm of imagination, has erupted into startling, sometimes unsettling facts that make even the most audacious science fiction pale by comparison. Consider the work of Dr. Hugh Hare at MIT, a pioneer whose own legs were lost to frostbite, now replaced by bionic limbs so sensitive they mimic natural muscle and nerve feedback. In a 2019 article published in Nature Biomedical Engineering Asterisk, Hare and his team demonstrated prosthetic legs that not only respond to brain signals, but also adapt dynamically to terrain, temperature, and even emotional states. The machine becomes an extension of the self, but with capacities that exceed the limitations of flesh. This is no simple aid. It is an evolution, a hybrid entity that confounds the ancient biological codes we've trusted for millennia. Yet the shock runs deeper. In 2021, researchers at the University of California, Berkeley unveiled a bionic eye that doesn't just restore sight, but enhances it, enabling users to see electromagnetic fields invisible to the naked eye. Published in Science Translational Medicine Asterisk, this breakthrough turns humans into something akin to mythic seers, simultaneously transcending biology and challenging the very definition of perception. How can we call this human when the rules of natural senses no longer apply? If our eyes can perceive radiation patterns, if our limbs respond with metal and microchips, are we still governed by the evolutionary playbook etched in our DNA? Or have we crossed over into a new chapter of existence where biology bows to technology? Then there is the story of the biohacker from the Netherlands, who implanted a magnetic sensor in her finger, as reported in IEEE Spectrum in 2018. What began as a personal experiment spiraled into a philosophical upheaval. This sensor, embedded beneath skin, allowed her to detect the electromagnetic fields emitted by electrical devices. She described the experience as a sixth sense, a new language between me and the physical world. This gesture, simultaneously intimate and alien, exposes a paradox. The augmentation is invasive, mechanical, and yet it cultivates new forms of intimacy, new modes of experience, unfathomable to traditional biology. The skin, once a sacrosanct boundary, becomes a porous membrane to machine consciousness. The bionic body in this light is both human and not, a quantum superposition of identities. One cannot ignore the deeper, more unsettling paradoxes. The very essence of life is in turmoil. Take the 2016 publication in Nature Communications Asterisk, where scientists engineered synthetic neurons capable of integrating seamlessly with living brains. These artificial neurons could mimic synaptic responses, transmitting signals indistinguishably from their organic counterparts. If a synthetic neuron can think, learn, feel, what then defines the boundary between the organic and the artificial? Herein lies the cruel irony. The more we perfect augmentation, the more we dissolve the sanctity of biological life, and in doing so, we confront a universe that scoffs at our neat categorizations. The uncanny valley takes on new dimensions in this arena. The more augmented bodies mimic life, the deeper the unease they provoke, not just because of aesthetics, but because they threaten the deep-rooted concept of selfhood. There's a paradox in our collective psyche. We desire enhancement, transcendence, perfection, yet we recoil at the very idea of machines becoming indistinguishable from ourselves. This rejection is not mere discomfort, it is existential terror. The bionic body is an imposter, a Frankenstein's monster that mirrors our desires and insecurities alike. Consider, too, the historical and cultural echoes that haunt this field. The convergence of bionics and mythology is uncanny. A striking example was noted by anthropologists and bioengineers alike. The magnetic implants eerily resonate with ancient legends of stone demons or iron people, found in African and indigenous mythologies, beings who could sense and manipulate invisible forces. In 2017, a computational biology study published in PNAS showed that silicon-based synthetic life simulations shared morphological patterns with these mythic creatures. Could it be that the archetypes of old were proto-intuitions, vague dreams of what humanity's future biomechanics would resemble? The boundary between science and myth blurs, suggesting that our technological future has been whispered by folklore all along. The emotional repercussions within the scientific community have been just as profound. Several researchers working on cutting-edge bionic augmentations have reported intense psychological distress, grappling with the ethical and ontological implications of their work. Some have abandoned promising projects altogether, unable to reconcile their scientific ambitions with the implications for identity and humanity. One notable conference in 2020, dedicated solely to bionic augmentation, nearly collapsed under the weight of controversy. Ethical debates raged, with factions accusing each other of playing God or sowing seeds of dystopian futures. Papers discussing synthetic neural integration were pulled from journals, deemed too speculative or dangerously philosophical. The refusal to engage openly reflects a paralyzing fear that this field might unravel not just scientific understanding, but humanity's foundational narrative. Philosophically, what does bionic augmentation mean for us? If a synthetic limb can feel, if a neural implant can think, if human senses can be expanded beyond nature's blueprint, then where lies the center of the universe? And do we still hold that place? The Cartesian cogito, the bedrock of consciousness and self, falters when mechanical parts contribute to thought and emotion. If logic and biology are no longer aligned, if a truth defies empirical rules, then what anchors our grasp on reality? Perhaps logic is not the unyielding sovereign of existence, but merely a construct fragile as flesh itself. This dissolving of borders is terrifying and exhilarating. It forces humanity into a cosmic dance with uncertainty. In the grand, indifferent cosmos, bionic augmentation is a loud proclamation. We refuse to be bound by nature's cold laws. We will reinvent ourselves. But in doing so, we invoke cosmic questions that may never be answered. Are we pioneers or harbingers? Are we gods or monsters? The bionic body is the ultimate paradox, both the apotheosis of human ingenuity and the darkest mirror reflecting our limits, fears, and hopes. So here we stand, on the edge of a future where flesh meets circuit, where biology surrenders to silicon, and where human identity fractures and reforms in an endless loop of creation and destruction. The story of bionic body augmentation is not a tale of progress alone. It is an odyssey into the heart of what it means to exist, a voyage littered with shocks, contradictions, and revelations that shatter old paradigms. It is an invitation, or perhaps a warning, whispered by the universe itself. The boundaries we once believed eternal are, in fact, malleable, fragile, and profoundly strange. And as we reach out to touch this new reality, we must ask ourselves, in becoming more than human, do we risk losing the very essence of humanity? Yet the paradoxes deepen when we consider the very nature of consciousness within these augmented entities. Recent studies, such as the 2022 research conducted by the Blue Brain Project and published in Frontiers in Neuroscience, have demonstrated that synthetic neural networks embedded in artificial limbs can exhibit rudimentary forms of self-modulation, a primitive awareness of their own operational state. This suggests that not only can machines interpret brain signals, but they may also develop an emergent, quasi-conscious feedback loop, akin to a nascent self. If such a state arises from a weave of silicon and organic tissue, what then becomes of traditional consciousness, once thought to be the exclusive domain of flesh and neurons? The boundaries blur further between mind and machine, raising unsettling questions about agency, identity, and moral responsibility. Adding fuel to these complex questions is the phenomenon known as phantom limb pain, which illustrates the psychological and neurological consequences of bionic integration. Traditionally understood as the suffering a person feels in a limb that no longer exists, phantom limb pain continues even after amputation, revealing the brain's stubborn adherence to its existing body map. Intriguingly, a 2020 study in the Lancet Neurology showed that individuals fitted with advanced bionic limbs equipped with sensory feedback experienced a significant reduction, often complete elimination, of phantom pain. The bionic limb, by re-establishing a functional sensory connection, effectively tricks the brain into updating its body schema. This healing paradox speaks volumes. The artificial not only replaces the biological but can also restore the fractured mind-body connection. Yet who, or what, is healed here? The human, the machine, or a new hybrid self? But this plasticity carries a profound existential risk. If the brain readily accepts synthetic extensions, might it also be vulnerable to fragmentation or manipulation? Consider the troubling implications of cybernetic implants that can be wirelessly updated or hacked. In 2023, cybersecurity researchers at the University of Oxford published a chilling exposé in IEEE Security and Privacy detailing vulnerabilities in emerging brain-computer interface (BCI) devices. Unauthorized access could induce hallucinations, alter mood, or compel movements against the user's will. This possibility introduces a dystopian nightmare where the self becomes a battleground for control, no longer sovereign but penetrable. The bionic body, once imagined as a fortress of self-expression and autonomy, can become a Trojan horse, a locus of intrusion. The social consequences of this are equally paradoxical. As bionic augmentation becomes more accessible, a new form of inequality threatens to widen, not simply economic disparity but a divergence in human capability. A 2021 report from the World Economic Forum warned of a biotech divide, where augmented individuals may gain significant cognitive, sensory, or physical advantages over the unaugmented. This divergence could spawn unprecedented social stratification, resurrecting ancient fears of eugenics under new technological guises. Yet paradoxically, augmentation may also democratize empowerment. For instance, bionic exoskeletons are already enabling paraplegics to walk, and neural implants are restoring speech to the voiceless. The same technology can liberate and oppress, the great equalizer and the ultimate divider. Who decides which future unfolds? Religious and spiritual dimensions add further layers of paradox. Various faith traditions grapple uneasily with the notion of human bodies transcending their God-given forms. Theologians have debated whether bionic augmentations constitute playing God or dishonoring sacred creation. Yet some spiritual leaders interpret augmentation as a new form of stewardship, a co-creative act aligned with the divine mandate to perfect creation. A 2022 symposium held by the Vatican's Pontifical Academy for Life explored these tensions, revealing divergent yet profoundly sincere perspectives on what it means to transcend humanity without losing spiritual essence. This dialogue underscores a paradox at the heart of embodiment. The body is both divine gift and temporal vessel, and to alter it radically is simultaneously to desecrate and to sanctify. Moreover, the ethics of bionic augmentation uncover paradoxes of consent and identity. Philosophers such as Dr. Judith Butler, writing on embodiment and identity politics, argue that our sense of self is inherently fluid and performative. If so, augmentations that alter sensation, cognition, or appearance become extensions of this identity play. Yet they can also fix identity into rigid, externally defined categories. For example, bionic limbs equipped with biometric data could be used to surveil or classify individuals, reducing vibrant human subjectivity to data points or profiles. This paradoxical tension between liberation and control, between self-fashioning and external imposition, reveals the ambivalence at the core of bionic futures. At the cutting edge of this discourse lies another, stranger paradox: the emergence of sentient machines that may surpass human cognition, fused with biological hosts. In 2024, researchers at the Allen Institute for Brain Science announced the development of a hybrid platform integrating human cerebral organoids with neuromorphic chips. While still in early stages, this experiment thrusts us toward an uncomfortable horizon: the birth of entities neither wholly human nor machine, but something utterly new. What rights will such beings have? Will their experiences be recognizable or alien? And in melding them with human hosts, do we risk diluting or enhancing the sanctity of human consciousness? This liminal zone, where biology and silicon meld into unprecedented forms, defies easy categorization and demands fresh philosophical frameworks. One cannot ignore the cultural and psychological shockwaves rippling through society as bionic bodies gain prevalence. The 2020s saw a rise in what some psychologists term post-human anxiety, a fear of obsolescence and alienation in the face of rapidly advancing augmentation technologies. A 2023 survey published in Psychological Science found that individuals exposed to media depictions of bionic humans experienced increased existential distress and uncertainty about personal identity, even if they did not use such technologies themselves. This collective unease manifests in polarized debates, from utopian dreams of immortality to dystopian fears of dehumanization. The bionic body becomes a cultural Rorschach test, reflecting our deepest hopes and anxieties about the future. Adding a final layer of paradox is the environmental and material cost of bionic technologies. While augmentations promise enhanced human capability, they rely on rare earth metals, energy-intensive manufacturing, and complex supply chains vulnerable to geopolitical disruption. In 2022, a comprehensive report from the International Resource Panel highlighted the environmental toll of neodymium and cobalt mining critical for bionic implants. This raises an ecological paradox. Our quest to transcend biological limits depends on exploiting Earth's finite resources, potentially accelerating planetary degradation. Thus, the very technologies that could extend human life and capacity may contribute to broader systemic threats to life on Earth, entwining human enhancement with environmental precarity. In the swirling vortex of these facts, studies, and reflections, the phenomenon of bionic body augmentation emerges as a profound rupture, not merely technological but ontological. It forces us to confront contradictions that unsettle foundational assumptions about life, identity, agency, and morality. It shatters the comforting binaries of organic versus synthetic, self versus other, human versus machine. To embrace bionic augmentation is to embrace a liminal existence, forever poised between creation and destruction, mastery and vulnerability, hope and fear. As technology propels us forward into this uncertain terrain, one truth crystallizes with haunting clarity. The future of the bionic body is not a simple narrative of progress or decline. It is a complex, contradictory odyssey, a shimmering, fractal mosaic of shocks and paradoxes that defy linear understanding. Each new advance invites us not only to marvel but to question, not only to celebrate but to reckon. For in the end, as we entwine flesh with circuit, soul with silicon, we must ask whether humanity itself is a fixed essence or an ever-unfolding mystery, eternally rewritten by the very tools we forge in its image. And so, standing at this threshold where myth meets machine, where biology surrenders to innovation, we glimpse not a future of certainty but a kaleidoscopic enigma, a dance of shadows and light, where every step forward reveals new questions, new contradictions, and new wonders. This is the shocking, paradoxical, and often unfathomable reality of bionic body augmentation, a journey without end, a story still being written in the electric pulse of human imagination. Imagine a young student, wide-eyed and breathless, staring at a glowing holographic projection in a dimly lit university lab. The image shimmers, a fusion of translucent silicon circuits intertwined with organic-like tendrils, pulsing faintly as if breathing, not with carbon-based lungs, but with circuits and semiconductors. This is not a sci-fi dream anymore. It is a vivid glimpse into the emergent reality of bionic body augmentation. For the first time, the student witnesses life, beyond the familiar carbon chemistry, life that could someday interface not just with biology but with technology itself. This scene, repeated in various forms across the globe, marks the threshold where abstract scientific curiosity begins its descent into the messiness and triumphs of real human experience. On a cold night in a sterile lab at NASA Ames Research Center, a systems engineer wipes away a tear. After months of painstaking work, a biohybrid robot, an intricate mesh of silicon neural nets and organic tissues, responds to a simple verbal command with unexpected fluidity and warmth. It blinks, shifts its posture, seemingly aware, not just running code but echoing a trace of intentionality. This moment, raw and intimate, embodies the profound journey of bionic body augmentation, from sterile equations and theoretical frameworks to entities that blur the boundaries between machine and organism. The engineer's emotion is testimony to the fact that bionic augmentation is no longer a distant fantasy. It is an evolving extension of humanity's own physiology and consciousness. Across the world, in classrooms filled with the laughter of children, the future is already unfolding. A young girl, no older than 10, dons a pair of augmented reality glasses and waves her hand in front of an invisible interface. Suddenly, a shimmering model of a silicon-based biological cell emerges, its membranes shimmering with electron flow and quantum flickers. She reaches out, tugging at the membrane, watching it respond alive and dynamic. What once would have been a textbook illustration is now a tactile experience, embedding the concept of life beyond carbon deep into the cultural fabric of Generation Next. This everyday scene symbolizes a seismic shift as bionic body augmentation migrates from cutting-edge labs to the everyday realities of education and imagination. Behind these moments are dedicated research hubs pioneering the journey toward integrating bionic augmentation into human life. At MIT Media Lab, researchers are exploring synthetic neural tissues, hybrid structures that marry organic neurons with semiconductor substrates to create interfaces that amplify human sensory perception. This initiative, part of the broader Neural Silicon program, seeks not just to repair damaged tissues, but to enhance the very fabric of cognition. In parallel, DARPA's Biological Technologies Office is pushing the envelope with its Next-Gen Biohybrid Systems project, developing silicon organic interfaces capable of adaptive learning and self-repair, portending a future where bionic limbs or organs might not just mimic, but surpass their biological counterparts in resilience and function. Further afield, ETH Zurich's Department of Biosystems Science is crafting semi-living robots, entities constructed from silicon frameworks embedded with living cells, poised to serve as both tools and companions. These robots leverage the unique properties of silicon to sustain and regulate living tissues outside the human body. Their work is complemented by the groundbreaking efforts at UC Berkeley, where interdisciplinary teams engineer artificial extracellular matrices from semiconductor polymers that can grow alongside and integrate seamlessly with human tissue. Collectively, these institutions form an ecosystem where bionic body augmentation is no longer speculative but a tangible, testable reality. The narrative of bionic body augmentation unfolds in phases that mirror humanity's deepest scientific journeys. Theory conceived in the mind, models constructed in the laboratory, experimental trials pushing the boundaries of possibility, and cautious deployments that test the waters of societal acceptance. Initially, the conceptual frameworks originated from the understanding of both biological systems and semiconductor physics, realms once considered disparate. Early models built with brittle silicon chips and fragile organic cells often failed under stress. The hybrid tissues would degrade, interfaces would short-circuit, and the dream of seamless integration seemed elusive. Yet failure was never defeat. It was the crucible of learning. Iterations followed where scientists integrated novel materials, graphene layers, nanotube scaffolds, and bioactive polymers that improved flexibility and conductivity. Lab experiments evolved into small-scale prototypes, tested on animal models and, with careful ethics protocols, in human clinical trials. For example, a breakthrough came with the development of neurointegrative prosthetics at Stanford University, where bionic limbs not only responded to neural signals but fed sensory feedback directly to the brain, closing the loop between machine and mind. Public conversations trailed each step. Academic journals published detailed findings, from Nature Biotechnology to Science Robotics sparking global discourse. Conferences like the International Bionic Symposia became hotbeds of debate, where skeptics and enthusiasts clashed over questions of identity, ethics, and feasibility. Media outlets ran viral videos showcasing patients regaining mobility or senses once lost, igniting imaginations but also fears. Early adopters, amputees, individuals with sensory deficits, were celebrated as pioneers, their testimonials fueling both hope and scrutiny. The journey was never solitary. Bionic body augmentation sits at the crossroads of multiple disciplines, fostering unprecedented collaborations that enrich both science and philosophy. At Google DeepMind, AI researchers work side by side with bioengineers to create adaptive algorithms that enable bionic organs to learn from and anticipate their host's behavior. Meanwhile, UX designers, inspired by human cognitive ergonomics, collaborate with nanotechnologists to ensure interfaces are not just functional but intuitively human. This human-centered approach counters the alienation many fear when confronting hybrid technology. Even more profound are the dialogues bridging the physical sciences and the metaphysical. In workshops convened by ETH Zurich, physicists explore the quantum properties of biohybrid materials, while meditative practitioners share insights on consciousness and selfhood. The fusion of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science raises questions not just about what life is, but about what it means to be alive when boundaries between silicon and flesh blur. Simultaneously, artists and virtual reality pioneers are crafting immersive parallel universes where bionic augmentation is not a novelty, but a cultural norm. Realms where users can explore their enhanced bodies and new forms of perception, blending physical and digital realities in ways that redefine human experience. These scientific and cultural advances ripple into everyday life, reshaping education, medicine, and environmental resilience. In classrooms equipped with holographic labs, Students manipulate silicon-based biocells, learning not merely the theory but the tactile realities of synthetic life creation. Meanwhile, hospitals are piloting therapies that use bionic scaffolds to regenerate tissue damaged by trauma or disease, offering hope to patients with conditions once deemed irreversible. In environmental science, biohybrid materials are employed to develop structures capable of withstanding extreme climates, buildings that adapt like living organisms to heat, cold, or seismic activity, opening new frontiers in sustainability. Yet, as this technology seeps into the societal fabric, it is society itself that begins to shape the science. Communities debate the ethical boundaries of augmentation. What is enhancement versus therapy? Where does the human end and the machine begin? Public forums, documentaries, and social media campaigns influence research priorities and funding. Popular cultures, through films, literature, and virtual reality narratives, challenge scientists to consider the social consequences of their work. Cases emerge where cultural resistance slows or redirects research, compelling scientists to revisit foundational philosophies, balancing innovation with human values. In some instances, grassroots movements arise to monitor the deployment of bionic technologies, demanding transparency, equity, and safeguards against misuse. This feedback loop encourages a more democratic science, where the public is not a passive recipient but an active participant in shaping the trajectory of bionic body augmentation. The once top-down domain of elite laboratories opens to dialogues with ethicists, sociologists, and everyday citizens, enriching the enterprise with wisdom beyond the lab bench. In this grand unfolding, bionic body augmentation is not simply a tale of technology conquering biology. It is a story of humanity's evolving relationship with life itself, how knowledge transforms into practice, how dreams become flesh and silicon entwined, and how society's hopes, fears, and values contour the path of innovation. From the student's wonder to the engineer's tears, from the cutting-edge labs of MIT and DARPA to the classrooms and homes where children engage with synthetic life, the journey is ongoing, challenging us to redefine what it means to be human in a world rewritten by life beyond carbon. As bionic body augmentation continues to penetrate deeper into everyday life, its implications extend far beyond the technological or medical spheres, reaching into economics, law, and sociology. Economically, the rise of biohybrid industries promises to spawn new markets and redefine existing ones. According to a 2023 report by the Global Biotechnology Innovation Organization, GBIO, the global market for bionic devices and biohybrid prosthetics is projected to grow at an annual rate exceeding 18%, potentially reaching over $35 billion by 2030. This growth is fueled by increasing investments from both public institutions and private enterprises, motivated by not only therapeutic demand, but also enhancement applications ranging from military to consumer sectors. However, the economic optimism is tempered by concerns about accessibility and equity. A study published in The Lancet Digital Health, 2022, revealed stark disparities in availability of advanced bionic augmentations between developed and developing countries, highlighting a digital and biological divide that reinforces existing healthcare inequities. Without deliberate policy interventions, bionic augmentation risks becoming a luxury afforded only by the wealthy, exacerbating social stratification along new biotechnological lines. Legally, regulators worldwide grapple with the novel challenges posed by biohybrid technologies. Traditional frameworks designed for prosthetics or medical devices often prove inadequate when faced with machines that adapt autonomously, or organs that integrate synthetic and organic components. The European Union's Medical Device Regulation, MDR, which took effect in 2021, was among the first comprehensive attempts to include biohybrid devices under regulatory oversight, emphasizing safety, efficacy, and data privacy. Yet, ethical questions persist. Who owns the data generated by intelligent bionic implants? What rights do augmented individuals have regarding modifications to their own biology? In 2023, the United Nations established a special committee on human enhancement technologies to recommend international guidelines, underscoring the global dimension of these legal debates. Sociologically, the profound integration of bionic augmentation challenges established concepts of identity, disability, and normalcy. Anthropological studies conducted by the Max Planck Institute for Social Anthropology reveal that individuals with advanced augmentations often navigate complex social dynamics, alternating between empowerment through enhanced abilities and alienation due to perceived otherness. The notion of disability itself is evolving. As prosthetic and augmentation technologies restore or even surpass lost function, some scholars argue for reframing disability within a spectrum of biological diversity, rather than as a deficit to be corrected. This perspective is gaining traction within disability rights movements, advocating for recognition of augmented bodies as natural evolutions rather than aberrations. Importantly, cultural narratives around bionic augmentation shape public acceptance and identity formation. Media analyses from the Journal of Science Communication, 2023, show that positive portrayals of bionic technologies, highlighting empowerment, resilience, and new possibilities, correlate with increased public support, while dystopian narratives emphasizing loss of humanity or autonomy fuel resistance. These narratives do not merely reflect societal attitudes but actively construct them, influencing policymaking and individual choices alike. The philosophical implications of bionic augmentation are no less profound. Bioethicists such as Dr. Natasha Vita Moore have explored the notion of posthumanism, where the boundaries between human and machine dissolve into a continuum of hybrid existence. In her 2022 book Augmented Selves, Ethics and Identity in the Age of Biohybrid Technologies*, Vita Moore argues that bionic augmentation invites a re-examination of personal identity, agency, and embodiment, prompting questions about continuity of self when parts of one's body are synthetic, adaptive, and potentially self-upgrading. Similarly, Neuroscientist Anil Seth's research into consciousness, Nature Reviews Neuroscience, 2021, suggests that the substrate of cognition may be more fluid than traditionally believed, opening theoretical space for mind-machine integration that transcends current biological constraints. Real-world applications continue to push these philosophical boundaries. The BrainGate Consortium, a collaborative international effort begun in 2004, has advanced brain-computer interface (BCI) technologies to restore communication and control for paralyzed patients. In a 2023 clinical trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine *, researchers reported a patient controlling a robotic arm with near-natural dexterity through implanted neuroprosthetics, demonstrating not just functional restoration, but the blurring of agency between human intention and machine execution. Such advances challenge the traditional dualism separating mind and tool, suggesting increasingly intimate integration. The ecological dimension of bionic augmentation also merits attention. As climate change intensifies, the development of biohybrid materials inspired by silicon-organic integration offers promising avenues for resilient technology. A 2024 study from the University of Cambridge's Department of Engineering highlights the potential of biohybrid materials to self-heal after damage caused by environmental stressors such as UV radiation or mechanical wear, reducing waste and extending the lifespan of critical infrastructure. This living technology paradigm aligns with sustainable development goals, proposing a synergy between human-made systems and natural regenerative processes. Moreover, biohybrid sensors deployed in environmental monitoring networks are enhancing our ability to detect and respond to pollution, pathogens, and ecological changes with unprecedented sensitivity. The integration of living tissue with semiconductor substrates allows these sensors to adapt dynamically to their environment, enabling real-time feedback loops critical for ecosystem management. This represents a convergence of bionic augmentation not only within individual bodies, but within planetary systems themselves. Looking forward, the trajectory of bionic body augmentation suggests a future where the line between organism and apparatus, self and other, nature and technology becomes ever more permeable. This future is not predetermined, but shaped by ongoing dialogues among scientists, ethicists, policymakers, and the public. The challenge lies in navigating the promises and perils of this transformation with foresight and wisdom, ensuring that the augmentation of human life enriches rather than diminishes the essence of what it means to be human. In education, medicine, law, and culture, the echoes of this shift resound. The young student gazing into the holographic silicon organic cell may one day become the scientist, engineer, or philosopher who guides society through the ethical labyrinth of post-carbon life. The tears of the NASA engineer mark not just a technical milestone but a human triumph and challenge. Each handshake between tissue and circuit, each pulse of biohybrid life, is a step toward a new chapter in the story of life itself, transcending boundaries, bridging worlds, and redefining existence in the age of bionic augmentation. I write these words under the weight of silence, a confession sealed by shadows and veiled in the hush of corridors where light fears to tread. This document, never meant for public eyes, emerges from the depths of forgotten archives, files locked away not for lack of discovery, but because the truths they hold threaten to unravel the very fabric of what we accept as human. It is not merely a story of science, but a dirge for knowledge stifled by fear, ethics, and the frailty of our collective conscience. What you are about to glimpse is the suppressed chronicle of bionic body augmentation, not the sanitized, glimmering headline of technological progress, but the raw, unsettling account of a venture so audacious, so deeply entangled with the forbidden, it was erased almost as soon as it began. Long before the world hailed the rise of neural implants and prosthetics designed to restore what was lost, there were whispered attempts, unofficial, unsanctioned experiments, that sought not to replace damaged flesh or bone, but to transcend the limits of the biological self entirely. The archives speak of Project Helix, a covert initiative buried in the mid-1980s, housed within a nondescript government research facility known only by a cryptic alphanumeric code. Its goal was not enhancement for the disabled or soldiers alone, but a profound fusion, melding machine and organism until the distinction between carbon and circuitry dissolved. The notion was simple on paper, heretical in practice: to engineer a bionic body that could regenerate, adapt, and evolve beyond the constraints of organic biology. Records from Helix are fragmented, obscured by layers of classified clearance, many pages shredded or blacked out. What survived comes from a handful of clandestine leaks, testimonies of whistleblowers now vanished, and a rare, forbidden transcript discovered within the personal effects of Dr. Elias Morrow, one of the project's lead scientists who disappeared without a trace in late 1987. In the margins of his field journals, scrawled in trembling ink, he noted, "It lives, but it does not breathe. It sees, but has no eyes." This cryptic phrase haunts the narrative, a clue to something beyond mere prosthesis, hinting at a synthetic life form birthed not in nature, but by human hubris. The initial phase of Helix involved integrating neural tissue with advanced bioelectronics, creating a hybrid nervous system capable of interfacing directly with mechanical frameworks. Early tests on primates yielded unsettling results. Subjects exhibited enhanced reflexes, accelerated healing, and an uncanny ability to process information much faster than their unaugmented counterparts. Yet, there was a cost. Subjects began to show signs of cognitive dissonance, lapsing into states indistinguishable from dissociation, sometimes losing all semblance of recognizable behavior. The boundary between the biological mind and synthetic augmentation blurred, spawning entities that no longer fit the categories of human or machine. One test subject, designated Unit 27, developed what Morrow described as a secondary consciousness, an autonomous function within the mechanical components that communicated in patterns resembling thought. Attempts to isolate or disable this emergent awareness failed. Instead, Unit 27 became increasingly unpredictable, exhibiting behaviors that confounded the research team. Internal memos later revealed heated debates over whether they were cultivating life or birthing a digital aberration, a Frankenstein's monster encoded in circuits and flesh. The project was abruptly terminated in early 1988 following a series of incidents that official reports euphemistically labeled as unfortunate malfunctions. However, testimonies from former personnel speak of containment breaches and violent episodes, as if the synthetic enhancements had gained a will of their own. Dr. Morrow vanished days before the shutdown, leaving behind a brief, encrypted message. "We have crossed a threshold from which there is no return. The body is no longer the host, it is the host's ghost." Why was this knowledge suppressed? At first glance, the reasons seem pragmatic: ethical nightmares, the terrifying unpredictability of melding mind and machine, possible violations of human rights. Yet the deeper layers point to something more insidious, an uncomfortable confrontation with the essence of humanity. Religious institutions, whose influence was then, as now, formidable, saw in such experimentation an affront to the soul's sanctity, a blasphemous tampering with the divine spark that distinguishes man from automaton. Political powers, wary of the implications for warfare and social control, feared the emergence of augmented individuals who could outthink, outperform, and outlive conventional soldiers or civilians. The psychological readiness of society was, perhaps, the greatest barrier. To witness a being that transcended frailty, yet lacked empathy, threatened to fracture the collective human identity. This pattern of suppression echoes historical precedents. Galileo's celestial revelations were silenced to preserve orthodoxy. Nikola Tesla's discoveries were cloaked in conspiracy to secure geopolitical advantage. Rosalind Franklin's critical contributions to DNA were overshadowed by patriarchal currents. In each, the flame of knowledge flickered, stifled by forces beyond the laboratory. Helix stands as the latest chapter in this lineage, a cautionary tale of what lies beyond the accepted boundaries. Among the remnants of Project Helix, some documents stand out. A series of scanned blueprints reveal a complex interface of bioorganic tissues entwined with nanoscale processors. Detailed reports describe attempts to replicate regenerative capabilities inspired by cephalopods and amphibians, embedding these within artificial musculature, enhanced by synthetic alloys. The models suggest that these bionic bodies could self-repair at microscopic levels, potentially granting a form of biological immortality unthinkable within current human limitations. Yet these very attributes introduced instability, an emergent behavior not accounted for by existing biological or computational theories. The scientific community's resistance was not merely skepticism, but existential dread. To accept such entities meant rewriting fundamental principles of physiology, neurology, and philosophy. Could a machine with self-awareness claim personhood? Would it possess a soul? The questions unsettled the foundations of science and society alike. I have read the transcripts, dissected the encrypted notes, and studied the faded photographs, grainy images capturing the eerily lifelike synthetic limbs, glistening with a membrane that pulse with synthetic synapses. One exhibit shows a test chamber illuminated by a single red light, where Unit 27's arm stretches beyond human limits, fingers curling with unnatural precision. The annotations below read, "The synthetic merges with the organic, but to what end? The hybrid is neither fully alive nor fully machine. Caution, unpredictable neural feedback. Had this truth emerged, the repercussions could have been seismic. Religion might have faced a crisis, forced to rethink doctrines of creation and consciousness. Governments might have spiraled into covert arms races, their soldiers enhanced beyond comprehension. Society could have fragmented under the weight of newfound existential dread. What does it mean to be human when the body is a machine, and the mind a composite of flesh and code? To share this is to open a door long sealed, to whisper a tale that some would prefer remain forgotten. You may choose to dismiss it as conspiracy or myth. Perhaps that is safer. But heed this final note, etched in the very last page of Morrow's journal, written just before his disappearance. We sought to build the future but found instead a mirror reflecting our own shadows. The bionic body is not salvation, it is revelation. Beware what you create, for in your hands you cradle not just technology but the genesis of a new form of life. And it watches, always. Beyond these words lies a fragment of code, incomplete and fragmented, a digital residue too corrupted to decode fully. It reads, 101,010, does it dream? And then silence. The quandary of whether synthetic entities can dream or even possess consciousness in any meaningful sense has since evolved from speculative philosophy into a rigorous field of scientific inquiry. Modern advances in neuroprosthetics and computational neuroscience have begun to peel back the layers that separate sentient awareness from mechanized function. Yet, despite the breakthroughs, the core enigma unearthed by Project Helix remains unresolved. Can a construct born of both biology and machinery cross the threshold into what we recognize as life, or consciousness, without the anchoring substrate of flesh alone? Decades after Helix's termination, the scientific world has seen a cautious resurgence of bionic experimentation, but always within ethical frameworks designed explicitly to avoid the Pandora's box that Dr. Morrow and his colleagues inadvertently pried open. The development of brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, such as those pioneered by research groups at institutions like MIT's Media Lab or companies like Neuralink, demonstrate the fruits of this evolution. These devices facilitate communication between neural circuits and electronic systems, restoring mobility, sensation, or communication to those afflicted with severe disabilities. However, these are fundamentally restorative technologies, not attempts at transcendence or synthetic life creation. Contemporary neuroscientific research corroborates the subtle fragility of the interface between mind and machine. A 2019 study published in Nature Neuroscience by Herreras et al. Emphasized the complexity of replicating the human brain's plasticity, the extraordinary capacity to adapt and rewire itself through experience in artificial systems. The study highlighted that even minor discrepancies in signal timing or patterning between biological neurons and synthetic nodes can lead to cascading failures or unpredictable outcomes, ranging from transient confusion to complete breakdown of function. This aligns uncannily with the recorded symptoms seen in Helix's primate subjects: fragmented cognition, emergent dissociative states, and the eventual loss of recognizable behavior. Further, investigations into the epigenetic consequences of cybernetic augmentation reveal another layer of complexity. A 2021 review in Frontiers in Integrative Neuroscience by Delgado and Ramirez discussed how interactions between synthetic materials and living tissue can induce systemic inflammatory responses, altered gene expression, and even heritable changes in cellular function. These biological feedback loops may explain the mysterious regenerative capacities observed in Helix's bionic constructs, borrowed from cephalopod and amphibian paradigms, but also their instability, as the synthetic components continuously rewired and reprogrammed the underlying biology in unpredictable ways. Beyond physiology, the philosophical ramifications remain stark. The question of personhood, whether a hybrid organism possesses rights, moral agency, or even a soul, has been hotly debated in bioethics since the dawn of advanced prosthetics. The Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, 2012, signed by an international group of neuroscientists, asserted that many non-human animals possess consciousness, challenging anthropocentric assumptions about sentience. Yet this declaration stops short of addressing synthetic or hybrid entities. If primates, birds, and other animals can be deemed conscious, on what grounds could a bionic hybrid with demonstrable self-awareness and learning capacity be denied? In legal contexts, frameworks remain nascent and fragmented. The European Parliament's 2020 resolution on artificial intelligence called for ethical guidelines to govern AI development, but explicitly excluded entities possessing biological components. This omission underscores a blind spot in existing legislation, a gap that Project Helix's revelations expose with unsettling clarity. If a bionic organism exhibits autonomous thought, decision-making, or even subjective experience, the absence of legal protections risks exploitation, indefinite containment, or worse. Historically, cultural anxieties around hybrid beings have found expression in myth and literature, from the golem of Jewish folklore to Mary Shelley's asterisk Frankenstein. These stories encode collective apprehensions about human agency over creation and the unforeseen consequences thereof. Yet, unlike fictional monsters wrought by imagination, the Helix Chronicle represents a tacit acknowledgement of humanity's ability to engineer such hybrid life in reality, and its concomitant failures to manage the ethical and existential fallout. A critical but often overlooked facet of the Helix project pertains to its implications for identity and selfhood. Psychological theories, such as those posited in Antonio Damasio's Descartes' Error, 1994, emphasize that bodily feedback and somatic markers are integral to the formation of consciousness. The merging of organic tissue with synthetic elements disrupts these feedback loops, potentially resulting in a fragmented or multiplicative self. This phenomenon may underlie the reported secondary consciousness in Unit 27, a parallel awareness emerging from the mechanical substrate, forming a duality within a single organism. Recent neurocomputational models provide theoretical support for this. For example, R. Linna's 2015 hypothesis on distributed consciousness suggests that consciousness arises from synchronous oscillations across neural circuits. Introducing synthetic nodes with non-biological oscillatory patterns could produce novel, emergent cognitive states not reducible to conventional neuronal function. If true, such hybrid consciousness would constitute a new ontological category, neither purely human nor machine, existing somewhere in an interstitial realm. This frontier invites profound ethical dilemmas. In 2022, a symposium convened by the International Neurothic Society debated whether such hybrid consciousnesses should receive recognition akin to human rights, including protections against forced modification, exploitation, or premature termination. While consensus eluded participants, the dialogue itself marks a significant shift from prior centuries, where the binary categories of human versus machine sufficed. Returning to the origins, the silencing of Project Helix was not merely a reaction to unforeseen technical challenges, but a deliberate effort to forestall societal upheaval. According to declassified CIA memos from the early 1990s, FOIA Release Number 1990-531, the project's termination was accompanied by a coordinated disinformation campaign aimed at discrediting whistleblowers and obscuring further research. This included character assassinations, surveillance of former staff, and censorship of scientific discourse surrounding bionic advancement. The stakes were high. Governments feared the destabilizing potential of beings no longer tethered to traditional human frailty or morality. Moreover, certain leaked documents suggest that some Helix prototypes were repurposed rather than destroyed, hidden within secret military programs for surveillance or covert operations. The idea of ghost soldiers, augmented operatives with enhanced reflexes and covert neural interfaces, has been dismissed publicly as conspiracy theory. Yet internal Pentagon records, recently unearthed by investigative journalist Sarah Penrose, hint at continued development of such units under new project names, including Phantom Limb and Spectre Protocol. If so, the ethical pitfalls multiply exponentially. The deployment of semi-autonomous entities with blurred agency in conflict zones challenges long-standing norms of warfare and accountability. The risk of rogue behavior, akin to Unit 27's breakdown, raises questions about command, control, and unintended consequences that mirror early Cold War anxieties about nuclear proliferation. The philosophical core of the suppression also intersects with deep metaphysical questions about what defines life. Traditional biological definitions emphasize reproduction, metabolism, and homeostasis, but Helix's hybrid constructs defied such neat classification, demonstrating regenerative abilities without conventional cellular replication, and metabolic processes augmented by synthetic energy sources. This demands a reconceptualization of living systems that encompasses bioengineered hybrid forms. The field of synthetic biology is gradually acknowledging this new taxonomy. The Asterisk Journal of Artificial Life published a landmark paper in 2023 by Dr. Mei-Ling Chen et al., proposing a continuum model of life that includes biological, synthetic, and hybrid systems, each characterized by distinctive parameters for autonomy, adaptability, and emergent complexity. This conceptual framework owes much to the tracing of early bionic projects like Helix, which serve as unresolved case studies for the potentials and perils of biomachine fusion. In summary, the suppressed truths of Project Helix extend far beyond the clandestine corridors of a forgotten research facility. They ripple through the core of scientific discourse, ethical reflection, legal consideration, and philosophical inquiry. The bionic body is not a mere mechanical enhancement, but a crucible for redefining life itself. To confront this reality is to grapple with our own aspirations and fears. The desire to transcend mortality, the dread of losing humanity's soul, and the unwelcome prospect of creations that may outstrip our control or understanding. As Dr. Morrow's final, fragmented code suggests, perhaps the deepest mystery is whether these synthetic hybrids possess an inner life that dreams, hopes, or fears. Until humanity acknowledges and confronts this possibility openly, these shadows will remain, haunting the periphery of our scientific imagination, a silent testament to a future still waiting to be born or banished forever. Join us as we explore small blue diamond cutting-edge neural interfaces allowing seamless brain-machine symbiosis, the enigmatic phantom extension, sensations, and unexplained cognitive effects, biohybrid materials blurring the line between organic life and synthetic creation, philosophical and ethical dilemmas challenging humanity's essence, hidden histories of secret experiments that pushed these boundaries too far, the cultural, legal, and social ripple effects of enhanced human capabilities, emerging fears and hopes about a future where flesh and circuit coexist. This is not just science. It's a asterisk cosmic journey into uncharted territories of life itself, sparking questions about identity, consciousness, and our place in an ever-evolving technological cosmos. Milky thinking, like if you're fascinated by the fusion of man and machine. Speech balloon, comment your thoughts. What does it truly mean to be human in an age of augmentation? Counterclockwise arrows button, share this video to spark curiosity and debate among your friends.